Sup, you fucking miss me? Welcome back to Valoranting. It's the 21st of June, and I finally emerged from a combination of things that make life hard, to be honest, from COVID quarantine to looking after the family with other sick members, but we're fucking back, mostly. Good to be here with Vance and Mitch, man. What's up, guys? Yeah, what have you guys been up to, huh? What have I fucking missed out on?
Fucking
quick.
bummed because
bro.
you can't host anymore. Since you're
I was
fucking
looking
back.
forward to it, man.
No,
I mean,
by all means. By all means.
all right, Vance, go ahead. You got 60 seconds, bro. Read us that intro.
Nah,
let's
we're
get that
moving on.
timer
Yeah,
back.
we're doing it
moving on.
differently
Fuck it.
now.
Fuck it.
I know,
Yeah.
I know.
New format.
So,
It's a new
yeah,
game.
okay, so we got a slightly new format here for the show, because generally we tend to blow out the episode a fair bit with like a lot of segments and stuff like that. So we're trying to be more focused, but trying to include a lot of variety of good stuff you guys like. Fuck it, you know what? Let's just jump straight in. First of all, let's talk about this new map here. Pearl got released, or rather teased. We saw the play tests recently. It's fucking massive, Vans. This
Yeah.
map is giga big.
Freaking huge. Almost feels like that. What's that Overwatch map there where there's like that center right now that you're looking at here, and like you have to fight for a capture point. It's really
It looks like
big.
fucking Dorado. It looks like Dorado.
Exactly. So it's really big. I think it's really cool. I think the other thing about it is that there's no gimmicks, right, going into this map. You know, there's no ropes, there's no center defender spawn. You actually get to play as basic as possible, and where the gimmicks is actually going to be the composition coming out with your team. So that is going to be the fun one that teams are going to have to develop to dominate on this map. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think that this map's kind of interesting. Like, there's a couple of those small little holes up the top of the roof that could be a little bit of a problem. Give some really interesting opportunities for utility, but yeah, I guess the gimmick is just that it's a normal map. That's its thing, and that's fine. That's fine by me.
I will say, like, talking dividing features though, like it doesn't look like it has like a real quote unquote mid, right? That was like the formula for so many tac shooter maps in the past, that there was like, you know, somewhere for like operator duels to occur, like clockwork. Doesn't seem like that's the case here. It feels a bit more like bind in that sense. There are some long sight lines, but there's not like a quote unquote. Is there a mid? I guess
It's
kind of
it's
is.
almost like the
There's
opposite
not
of fracture,
really.
you know? Where fracture, it's like a defender spawn, and like that's where you start and you split across. But now it's like you're in the middle, and there's a bunch of corridors you could go through to split into sites. But as you're looking at this minimap, there's a lot of tight corridors. So what I like about this is that for a brand new map, you don't have to think about, oh, I need a Viper, so I could split off a whole open site on Breeze, split out an open site on what's the other big one? Fuck that I keep Icebox, for example, right? And then you could just use like your regular Astra. Your Brimstone's going to make a comeback because of all these choke points. So I think this is going to be really, really fun. Another super open concept, so it's going to be great to have Silva back into play, recon darts across the sites. I know Average Jonas has already been working out lineups with post plant Shockies, so I think you're going to see a resurgence of Silva at least. And again, another map where you have, it's not going to be like a cookie size cutter agent composition to win the map. I think there's going to be a lot of variety in this.
Is this too big, Mitch? It's cavernous, this thing. It's fucking gigantic.
I think so if we didn't have abilities, but I think mixing in the likes of a chamber, you can cut out a lot of those long rotations, or because of narrow corridors, you've got to go up and around and everything. You get a chamber in there, or Yoru, something like that, you can navigate it a little bit quicker. Neons as well for faster rotations. I think we're starting to see the ability for maps to be bigger because of the agents that we've got, but it's going to be really, really tough in your ranked games with the way that your rotations are going to just be insane.
That's the fun part, though, that your hallways and your corridors are actually quite large, because that's where most of the pain points were against your operas, right? When it's tight corridors, it's easy to op. Now your smokes also doesn't take as much space, so you really need to work your teamwork and your training space to be able to get these frag wins.
Let's talk about game changers. Let's mix it up here, because Riot has like it's not a tendency, I think, but like there's been a bit of a theme of like Riot maybe, you know, having only a less than expected number of slots for like certain tournaments. I think franchising, and it kind of reminds me of that. It's obviously not the same at all, but people are sort of speaking up saying, hey, there's only 8 slots here for Game Changers Berlin. Is this really what we're looking for like the first Game Changers LAN?
Yeah, it's very small, but I think as well as that, you're looking at the event. I guess if you're putting it on across, what is it, 6 days, 15th to 20th, I think you would have to run the same format. You're going to be adding on an extra couple of days. Maybe it's just way out of the budget, but it would have been great to see at least 12 in there. We have so many skilled Game Changers teams in at least EMEA and NA that I can think of. So
That's the
to
thing.
think of those alone, you've already got your 8 teams easily.
But that's the thing. When you're talking about the top teams currently in Game Changers, everybody's just thinking about North America and also Europe, but maybe even Team Liquid, for example, right, in South America. And those are going to be like your 3 or 4 teams to the max, because when you're thinking about North America, who's in there? You're thinking about Cloud9 White, Shopify Rebellion, and then your 3rd and 4th place is usually CLG Red and Dignitas, right? And those are your 4 teams. And so if you're actually going to give more spots, it's just going to be for those 4 teams. Anyways, I kind of like it that at least to start, it's a smaller format, just because, yes, there's a lot of really good teams, but there's really only been 1 or 2 that's very dominant in their own region. Again,
I will say
Liquid.
at least APAC and East Asia are being split up here, which is nice.
Yeah.
Who, if you start adding slots, who do they go to first? Who's getting kind of giga
EMEA.
screwed by this?
I think EMEA probably needs 1 more, right? Guild-X looks pretty good. G2 looks pretty good. And then the competition there is a little bit better. As 10 Star is one of them as well. I think that is like an up-and-comer. But like all the other regions, there's not too many tournaments that support these regions in LATAM, East Asia, and APAC. So I'm kind of okay with where it is right now.
Yeah, it's the same thing though. Like I said, you look down the EMEA list, last event, G2, Guild, Rix, Footballist. I think you could even say SMB could be there as well. But just even that top 4, those are easily contenders on the international stage. So I think we've definitely not hit the optimal number, but I guess this is a little bit of a feeler for them. How well is it going to do? What are the metrics like? And if this performs well, hopefully then we push to that, include everybody.
I mean, with such a huge domestic scene, I'm shocked that Brazil only has 1 slot. I mean, they are disproportionately larger in terms of their like current active player base in like those sort of third-party events than most of these other regions.
But it's Team Liquid winning everything, so that's what I'm getting back to.
Right?
In North America, C9 White's winning everything. There's good competition. There's only 1 dominant team.
Okay, fair enough. Let's move on. Let's talk about the new cinematic released by the Valorant team. Again, we're starting to get a little bit more teased out about the world. I feel like, guys, this is now we're really starting to get an understanding of like this dichotomy of worlds and sort of dimensions.
I actually still don't even know where the storyline is right now, because if you watch the end of the trailer, there's a part where it's like, oh shit, there's a twist now in the lore, and what the hell's going on? Who's really the good guys or the bad guys in this? And me being a nerd, and also big congratulations to Simprel, who's most recently joined the Riot team in terms of like being able to write the storylines. I'm excited to know what's going to happen in the next steps for the storyline in the lore of Valorant. For now, I think it's just really, really cool. I just want to see the series. Give me an arcane Valorant.
Yeah. That is literally, you've taken the words out of my mouth, Vans. I was about, the word arcane was just there. Looking at these trailers, that's all that I can think. It's like they are already doing the groundwork, but in a more impressive way than I thought. The fact that we're including maps, we're including all that sort of stuff, like the whole game is tied together right now. If you imagine someone sits down and goes, give me 10 episodes. It's like, well, the world building is already mostly done for them in what they've already set up. So it's going to be, I'd imagine, very easy to then tie that in, put it into a show and run it. They've got character personalities. They've got all that. Man, it's exciting times. 2-3 years from now, I think we're going to have a lot of different kinds of Valorant content.
Yeah, okay, real quick. How many people do you think? Sorry. How many people do you think really care about the lore? Like, especially because this is such a hardcore
I think your kid
shooter.
does. Your kid does, man.
Yeah, he's all about the lore.
I think a lot of people do. I mean, for me, it's something that I'm always interested in. But I mean, you're playing a game. If you're putting time in, I'd say anybody that's kind of above like your gold or something, right? You've put enough time in to even get a rank. You're probably going to be like, you see this content going around. If you're watching esports, you're invested in the scene. I think it's always good to see something that you like be built on in a in a good way, in a very soulful way, not like the fucking Halo TV series, which I'm not going to start. We don't have 2 hours. Let's keep going.
Yeah,
Vance,
the lore is going to be pretty cool. I think one of the things that really kept the community together to follow a game is the lore. I think even when you're looking at Overwatch, when there's, maybe not that many people watching like the competitive area, just like Valorant, for example, for now, there's still a lot of people that identify with the heroes, with the champions, with the agents, and especially when they represent different countries, it's just nice to see where the development and the characters are going towards to. So I'm interested about it. I can't wait for a Vietnamese character, to be honest with you.
I mean, all I'll say is that it still feels a bit convoluted because, like, at least in the Overwatch world, it's like established. It's like, yeah, here's like a utopian future and there's evil robots, we're fighting them. That's the setting. Here in Valorant, all the scene setting happens implicitly through these videos and not like explicitly, right? So people are still guessing like what the fucking premise of the entire game is about, frankly. So I think that's interesting that we sort of have to piece that together. But I mean, Valorant could command a player base without a deep, fleshed out lore world. So that's a good start for them, I guess. They've just got a good game. All right.
Definitely.
Let's keep moving here because I think this is an interesting switch up here for Liquid, obviously. We're talking about Link sort of being sat, coming out of the team here, and Dreamas joining, who is a player that we've kept our eye on, I think, over this season of VCT. But I kind of love to know, Mitch, where you sort of stand on this change here.
Yeah, look, I'm gonna take this change from Dreamas's perspective in that, like, I think this guy as a player is fantastic. I think he slotted in really well last minute to a team that I imagine is one of the more difficult teams to slot into. Maybe for Dreamas, it's great because he can come in a little looser, right? There's not as many things to learn, not as many pieces that will be in set positions that you need to know. That could be good, could be freeing for him. I think he's played very well. I think the problem is in looking at how little time that he had on this roster. You know, give him a little bit extra, you know, come into next season if we had one in 2 months. I think that he's already shown with the week-to-week improvements, not just in himself, but in the team as well. We've seen Liquid become a much more, I think, pointed machine, that he's a valuable addition to the roster. Yeah, I like it. I think I've enjoyed it.
That's where the issue is, though, Mitch, man. The issue is timing. Yes, he came into like the middle of the season where there's only 3 teams that could actually make it to the playoffs. So that said, when there's already a change in vision with Sliggy leaving as a coach, if it's not working out with a new system coming in from a new coach, it's nice to still have Link in the main core so that they always have a plan B or a plan C to revert to at least try to qualify going into Denmark. So I think right now for Liquid, looking at that move, it almost feels like setting their sights on Masters 2 was not part of that goal. And I think that's a bad goal. When on top of that, there are already rumors of like the roster shakeup when they had like the invite slot to Iceland and then had that dream run that they went towards to. So I feel that the timing was a little bit off. Nothing against Dreamas, but I feel that with the 5 core that you currently had with Liquid, with the old school Fish 123 with Link there being one of the OG members, it could have maybe helped out to at least see Liquid go in a deeper run in the playoffs now.
I mean, Mitch, do you guys have an LCQ?
We do.
Okay. Is that a play for?
Will be there
is that why we're seeing the timing of it being like this, especially with Liquid being knocked out of playoffs?
Yeah, it could have been that they look at it and say we have a bounce back realistically if things don't work out. That to me tells me that there must have been some turmoil behind the scenes because I think exactly like Van said, the timing is weird. Look, does Dreamas look good here? Yeah, but I can think of probably 30 players we could put in that would look good on any team. Are we going to do that mid-season? No. Mid-season changes are like red flags. That's the fucking sirens ringing. There's an iceberg up ahead and we forgot to fucking call it. And to me, that's like, okay, Liquid obviously had some whatever kind of internal issue there. Same way we had it with Sliggy recently as well, right? Like him leaving, it's not a comment on either one being inefficient or incapable. It's just that it didn't work. I think that, you know, it looked like an unnecessary change from the outside. That's all I can say.
What does this spell for? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Uber. I was gonna mention as well. It's like we also mentioned that there was issues of like IGLing with Liquid, right? Yeah, now Yampi's taking it and he's enjoying it. He's doing pretty good. But overall, do people think that Yampi's a little bit still restrained if he's still gonna continue to IGL for the team? Was it an IGL in the first place that we're looking for? I think all these questions are still lingering for me until we figure out what's going on in the LCQ.
Well, I mean, they definitely made a gambit here. If you'll excuse the pun, obviously, to try and make the changes at this point. Didn't work out, but I have a chance for the LCQ. Let's talk about other teams that can qualify through LCQ. How about fucking Chinese Valorant teams? Yeah, heard about any of those guys? So this is obviously like the path to sort of qualifying for champions, right? And obviously China is having a third-party tournament as far as we understand. And then I guess the top 2 of those teams go through to the LCQ. I guess China can't qualify directly to champions through any mechanism. So
I forgot what it's called, right? The season that they currently have, but they're currently in Act 2 of it, and there's going to be an Act 3, and whatever they're playing for circuit points, and I think like the top 2 will be able to make it into the LCQ. So when you're looking at that, there's already, you know, a couple of teams that look pretty good, good enough, I guess, for its own region. I think Edward Gaming is one of those big organizations that you heard of. WNV is doesn't exist anymore, but Tai Lu actually for CSGO fame, is also participating in these tournaments, but they've always been around 10 to 12th place in every single one of these acts, with the highest one being like 6th to 8th. So the competition itself looks great within the region, but is it going to be a region that could contend and compete against the world at Champions? I don't think so.
Hang
Just
on.
from that clip that you
These
saw,
guys, the game's not out in China, right?
it's not. They got a VPN through that shit to play in I think Hong Kong or something. So it gets pretty laggy. It gets pretty choppy. It's kind of like whimsical here and there, like just that. clip before that we saw,
Whimsical?
right? Yeah, it's.
What the fuck's whimsical about an authoritarian government preventing you from playing games?
Listen,
What?
man. I mean, you probably heard whimsical from Brendan's side show when you're casting with them from Overwatch. It bled over to Valorant, so now I'm saying whimsical all the time.
I hope they at least used the term better than you just did. Holy fucking shit, honestly.
But it's fun. It's whimsical. You like look at their shit. They're satchel charging on the shower's pinch. That they can't even get a right timing. But at least they got at least some sort of format in there to try to get.
All right.
maps.
Have you guys seen any of this gameplay?
That's what I just showed.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, have you seen it at length? You know, because when we use the term whimsical as casters, we're not actually being nice. We just had to find a different way of saying not good.
But that's what I'm
Is it-
saying. It's
What are you
good for
saying?
their region. It's not good at the world stage.
And that's
Like
what I
the-
wanted to know.
The
This is the
ideas are
thing.
there, but the
You-
executions.
You don't have a community that's being promoted to grow. You don't have a player base that's, you know, casual to build up into that professional league and so on. So if you're, you know, excluding yourself to practically just FPS pros from other games that, you know, download a VPN because they know it's a tournament, maybe they make some money. It's very hard to imagine they compete on the international stage, but that's a question of motivation. That's a question of whether there are 5 people who are playing all day, every day. And it's unlikely with the system that they have that they reach the same levels that other regions do. But I would love to see it, man. Can you imagine? They roll up the champs. That'd be incredible.
Yeah. I mean, again, seeing the game expand is great. I just feels like this is so guerrilla and underground.
One
These
step
guys
at a
are
time.
playing Valorant, you know what I mean, trying to avoid detection by the government. You know what I mean? All
Why
right.
are you going to Istanbul? For holidays?
Oh.
What's that for?
Look,
Trace in Chinatown there. I don't
PC,
know.
are you?
fuck's sake. Yeah. So NA VCT playoffs been popping off. You know, while I was in bed trying to catch as much as I could. Ben, you've got a handpicked match for us though. One of your favorites from the playoffs so far though.
Yeah, I think a lot of people agree probably that FaZe and 100 Thieves is probably the most fun match to watch for the stage 2 of playoffs of VCT. And I kind of want to like break it down as much as I can from like map to map in a short amount of time. I think if it's a series that you haven't been watching, you just have to watch it. And looking at this first map right here, there's a map where 100 Thieves are always known to be so good on the attacker side for pulse plants, right? But FaZe have won 8 rounds or 9 rounds in this half, all through process of elimination, which then means that 100 Thieves never had a chance to plant spikes down. Why? Because FaZe were really good on trap plays. This right here is an example of what they did. This is like an optic setup, as you can see right now, like the trap plays that they try to do towards the A main side. So they have like these relay bolts going into the fault line. Look how much space that covers with a flash over. Stellar, they're scrim partners between FaZe and 100 Thieves, so he's always going to be trying to lurk towards his A side. If it's not going to be playing a Viper, it's going to be a Cypher. So no matter how he plays it, like let's say if it's playing a Cypher trying to lurk here, he's fucked, right? So you're looking at how this is going through. Baby Bay gets a kill, and not only that, he's able to play a Neon that rotates really, really quickly across the map. So that's an example of one trap play. It's like a war of attrition that you had between both of these teams going into
You
the
have been
defense.
listening to Brencast.
Right. That's what I'm saying. And then the second one here is another trap play that I can have. I only have a screenshot because I want to show you how this is so intense, looking at how FaZe could set up these traps. First off, you basically, I can't draw, so you're going to look at my little hand cursor right here. So Dicey's playing inside this smoke that they're getting ready for information play to see 100 Thieves starting to execute towards the site. He finds information, he TPs towards the back of the site, which then allows Baby Bay to throw relay bolts right into this corner here. So then 100 Thieves is like, okay, the jig is up. We're going to try to execute. They try to get in. They get caught by a trademark from Chamber right over here and slow down. That also allows Flya to throw a Rolling Thunder right into the B main site while also throwing a flash in the back here. And to get, I think it was a flawless round on a hold. So trap plays were huge here for FaZe going into their first map. On the other end, though, for 100 Thieves, it was about trying to find information. So using the fade, on Asuna was a great piece of information, a great agent for them to find that information to fight towards the round, which eventually became a battle of defense, I had mentioned before, and 100 Thieves won it on defense. The second map, though, is going to be looking at just a scoreboard of how it's just all about not necessarily the whole team of FaZe, but also with Dicey. Dicey was able to get 8 first bloods, 6 of them being in the attacker side, and 4 of them being on the operator. Not many agents, not many players are finding too much values with operators on first bloods on the attacker side, even when there was a Jet meta trying to get in, because the Jet would usually be dashing into the site and creating space. So Dicey has always been a prominent part in Stage 2 to support FaZe on the initial kills and allowing FaZe to get map control. On the other end, for 100 Thieves, though, this has been a composition that they've been running throughout the whole stage, so they were kind of red at the same time as well, and this is one of the rare moments that you actually do see Will playing a chamber, playing an operator, that doesn't work out in their favor just because he's not able to move as quickly or nimbly as he can as a Jet or as a Raze, because Asuna is playing it. Now we get to the third map and final map. It goes back to another back and forth over here, but in the end, I'm going to get the right scene here. It came down to these last 3 rounds where this is going to haunt 100 Thieves. Just eco rounds being won here by FaZe. This situation right now, the Vandal was the only strong gun here for FaZe. And Poise is able to pick it up on Dicey's body, sneak through a cage on Stellar's attacker side, go for an underhand flash to get 2 kills right here to allow a 1 versus 1 in the end between Stellar. Yeah, exactly. Between Stellar and Superman. And this is Stellar and Superman, where Stellar picks up a rifle, Superman picks up the rifle too, and he gets to a 1 versus 1 Viper's Pit. And you see the idea for Stellar. A lot of people will have like a question mark as to why is he only moving in so slowly and crouching and not really going for the kill. He's trying to get trying to get the silhouette of the edge and hopefully beat Superman while Superman gets the red outline inside the Viper's Pit. So Superman wins that one, it booms them, and then FaZe wins on the 13-11 on round 24. So unlucky for 100 Thieves, but overall, this has to be like one of the matches to watch. I mean, it went 3 maps, almost 24 rounds each, overtime on one of them, and only had 4 minutes to talk about it. So watch that VOD.
The Viper definitely sees their opponent first in that case, right?
Correct. That's the red outline I was talking about.
Yeah, okay. So that means 100 Thieves are bound for LCQ now, which is kind of wild. NA is actually looking like it's got a bit of depth going on, which is good to see. When you check that one out as well, and obviously playoffs aren't done yet. We still got more action coming from VCT NA, as you can see here. We're going to have x0tek Gaming as they try and sort of make it through. And again, looking to see those 2 teams, excuse me, clash in that upper bracket final. Let's move on. Let's talk about a notable departure here. And this ties into our interview later on. We're chatting to x0tek later in the show, but before that, obviously, it's announced that Anidro is stepping down from the Cloud9 White roster and sort of moving into more of a content creator role. Now, I mean, I think it's safe to say that Annie is like a key component of this Cloud9 White dominance in the region, right? Basically, from the get-go. So, pretty big loss for this team. And I think they were IGLing on us. No, obviously, Mel was IGLing here, but I know that, in terms of solo play, Annie was called upon quite often to get it done.
Yep, agreed. I think this kind of sucks for Cloud9, but as we'll talk about it later when we'll have x0tek on, Bob is a great addition to the roster as well, but you get to see her in, I'm going to TLDR this clip. Basically, Annie Joel, she loves to stream, right? So she loves doing content creation, variety streaming. Unfortunately, though, when it gets to a point where there's going to be, too many agents coming out, another extra map coming in, the meta changing almost drastically every month or 2, there's just a lot of time you have to commit into the server. And that means usually if you want to have a work-life balance, technically you should have less time for practice and then more on your leisure, which is going to be your content creation.
Yeah.
But now it's starting to overtake and overflow into that time where Annie had to make a decision, and it's fully respected. I think it's always great to talk about your mental and physical health and not talk about these burnouts or not risk these burnouts, and it's good that she's taken that choice.
Honestly, I feel like Valorant is like the new arena for the kind of semi-toxic grind culture to be displayed. Like this generation's sort of fixation with like obsessive grind. and the requirement of that as well. Is it really possible anymore to like stay competitive in a game like Valorant where like your maps and agent pool is expanding and be able to stream at the same time? Because this is the same fucking story we're seeing told over and over again. At least in Annie's case, she realizes she doesn't want to be a pro player. Like she recognizes that it's just not realistic, but there are a lot of pro players that aren't willing to face this fact.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for the most part, it comes down to like the kind of person that you are. I know some people like, let's take Jonas as an example. He is literally the best example of this. The dude streams like 10 hours every day, like 8 to 10 hours every fucking day. He does 24-hour streams. I remember talking to him. He's like, yeah, I got to go to bed. I'm up in 6 hours to go skiing for 3 hours. After 3 hours of skiing, I'm going to come back and stream for 14 hours.
How do you stay in
and play
shape?
This tournament. And stay in shape. Well, I mean, that's the skiing, right? But this guy, like, he is nonstop every single day. And I think that if it came down to it, Jonas puts his mind to it, he could 100% survive in an environment like that. I don't think I could. And I think that's where, like, it comes back to, it depends what kind of person you are. Back when we were on Alliance, when I was on Alliance, Looker was, he was streaming pretty much every day. Not pretty much. I think he did stream every single night. He was streaming for hours and hours playing ranked. If he wasn't streaming ranked, he was playing ranked. If he wasn't playing ranked, he was in scrims or in officials. Like, this guy was living the game, and that's fine for some people. I don't think it was something that he was putting himself through for the culture, the grind. It's just the way that he worked. But I would say for the vast majority of people, it's way too much to take.
The trick is to stay single and childless. That's really it.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Don't start a family. Don't have a house. Don't go outside.
Don't do any of that.
Easy.
That's one thing. I think the other thing too, which is why like it kind of sucks that this might be one of the ways to fix it, is also looking at the franchising too, right? Because the franchising, then if you're actually part of the system, you've grinded, you've made it, you don't have to like go into like, oh, I have to practice for an extra like 8 to 10 hours every single day, possibly because I only have a 3-day tournament to try to qualify to Masters. This time it goes back to a format of 5 weeks where, okay, I have 1 full week to practice against a team, specifically on that team, specifically on certain maps. I think you're able to have a little bit more breathing room than you usually would if you had to grind that full mindset of like the 7 maps for a 3-day tournament.
All right, let's crack on a little bit here as well. I think it's just another sort of chapter in the emerging story, I think, of, a lot of these players sort of deciding what it is that they sort of prefer to do. I think Annie was a prolific Overwatch streamer as well before a Valorant career kicked off. So it kind of makes sense to return there. All right, Mitch, you're up. Let's talk about EMEA playoffs so far and some of your favorite moments.
Okay, let's go. So we're going to start off. The game that we're looking at this week is FPX against Fnatic. I mean, it has to be. It's a historic matchup, and last time was kind of weird. So this time around, we were hoping. So if you don't remember, it was like 2 super one-sided maps, and then I think we finished things off on Icebox, where FPX took it. Now, that was week 1, from what I remember, and Fnatic, over time, they got a little bit better. They've made roster changes. They've got Enzo. They've got Alpha Air. And these guys have started to grow into the team. And we've heard, week in, week out, people's opinions on these players growing and their brand increasing. And this map of Icebox, we're not going to spend too long on because, unfortunately, it wasn't too interesting. I'll say that the thing for FPX, pulling out this Yoru, it relies on upsetting your opponents. It relies on catching them off guard. We're going to take a look at a play here. It just basically summarizes what I feel went wrong for FPX in this entire map. They had a lot of really cool ideas, but ultimately this looked like a comp that Fnatic were ready to play against. Not because they thought FPX would pull it out necessarily, I don't know, but they have definitely practiced for this sort of thing, or they made the adjustment very well on the fly. And take a look, Angel, so he's already gotten into this corner where he is, the red Yoru up the top. He's snuck into the corner using his teleport, and he's put out a decoy, try and get someone to shoot at that. They do, and they TP out. So now you've already got Durka out of the equation. Don't have to worry about a tour de force. This is fantastic. So already it's been kind of a successful setup. But the problem is the space taking. This is the other aspect that Angel's going to go for. Misinformation, pulling people off angles, flashing. That's fantastic. Then he went in for this TP play towards the back, and unfortunately, Fnatic were just staring straight at it. They were ready for it. They had 3 players around here. He flashes, he swings, he's like, oh, I'm about to get them. There's actually a guy right beside him, just about to shoot him in the head. So it was a good idea, great execution. If a team is not ready for that, if you are not on your toes, you lose the round because of that play.
Sure.
But they didn't. And the problem was that this doesn't lose you a game, right? Just having that. But this was the key part of FPX's comp, the key part of their game plan coming in. Fnatic were ready for it. They got constant advantages from it. And then they just sat back and went, now let's play normal 5v4 Valorant. And we fuck you up every time with that kind of way. But after this map, things got kind of interesting. So we'll go on to map number 2 real quick. Let me pull that up in the background. 14-12, kind of interesting. Because last time FPX smashed Fnatic on this map. This shows the real resurgence of this team, that they are now able to come through and perform this OT. And whereas the last game was very much, I'll pull it up again just so you can see, Durga, Alpha Air dominating, FPX not able to gain any access to site, not able to gain advantages, and that's about where I ended. I don't care about anything else on that map. This one here, though, things were definitely spicy. We had a different set of heroes. You didn't have your Durka, you didn't have your Alpha Air. It was Mystic popping off. And I don't know if you guys saw it on Twitter, on Reddit, everywhere afterwards. People were saying Mystic got robbed. He didn't get the MVP. I don't think he was included in the MVP vote. And when you take a look at this, I think it's going to be fucking crazy that that was the case.
Sure.
Picking with your eyes closed if you're not thinking Mystic deserves it. No, Enzo ended up winning it, so you know. But it's, this time around, I will say, I think Mystic deserved a little bit more of a shout out.
Do you think that Mystic was the MVP of this series?
I think Mystic was at least entitled one of those 3 spots in the vote, let's say, for the people to decide at home. And looking at Twitter, looking at the poll, all of the replies were just Mystic got robbed. Where's Mystic? Where's Mystic? So I think at that point, I think he would have won it based on the community response had he been in there. And it was flashy plays like this, man. He got left in this clutch scenario. He peeks in, kills Artis. Artis, by the way, I don't know if I can, I won't hide this because I might have to restart it, but Artis was doing really well this map. And he peeks right into him with that flash, takes him down. And then we'll continue it on. I have to find the play button again. Not used to this. He's going to go for another little flash out, swinging. It was just Mystic going back to CS, man. And it's just beautiful watching a KO like this running around, dominating every single duel that they're in. This was a terrible round. Fnatic were about to lose. It's literally 8-7, and they're in a 2 versus 4 with Artis holding this angle. He's just killed someone, and he knows that Mystic is here, and yet Mystic's able to pull that value, win the round, equalize 8-8, and they're right back in the game. Also, that crippled FPX's economy. So that clutch pretty much won them this map. At least gave them the opportunity to push to OT and potentially win the map. So I thought Mystic was just phenomenal here. But in the end, FPX ended up taking it, and we went to map number 3. Now, map number 3, you can see that Fnatic had quite a strong defensive side, and I mean, quite a strong top of the scoreboard as well, if I'm telling the truth. I mean, mon petit chéri Enzo, he's looking absolutely insane. Let's take a look at one of the plays that he was able to pull off. I mean, so again, let's pause it up here. Oh no, I need to click on it first. There we go. Got it just in time. So aside from the sporadic switching around, you can see that Artis is about to get a flank and kill Durka and so on. But the key part of this round is there's 3 players rushing A main. There's 13 seconds left, and there's Enzo sat there all by himself. If he falls, they lose this round 100% of the time. He's already got a kill. They know he's there. He's been playing here the whole time as well. I'm not even sure if his talks. I think his wall is down as well at this moment. So, like, he literally is just standing here on his own, getting pushed by the whole team. And look at this. For some reason, right? Mystic's out there. He's making all the noise. He's taking the fight. Enzo's able to clean house. And he ends up winning the round off of time alone, just running the clock all the way down. Combined with, you know, his play here, which, I mean, this is a pretty easy one. It's a clutch. But it was his utility usage, particularly his fade. I think his fade is possibly, I mean, look, it's coming from me, so I know it's always going to be take it with a fistful assault, but I think his fade is probably one of the best we've got in EMEA, if not the best, and it's backed up by the stats as well. So that's a reason that some people are out there tweeting that, you know, the best, what's it? I can't remember the exact tweet. It was like, there's a player out there who has who has improved the most, and it was single-handedly improved a team after joining, and they said, like, guess who it is? And sure enough, it was Enzo after he joined Fnatic, and the results speak for themselves. This team is undefeated. They are absolutely dominating, and even the likes of FBX can't take them down. I think Fnatic might just be winning Masters. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's too early to call that, but I already did, so unlucky.
Yeah, let's stay in that lane then. Let's talk about the rest of this EMEA playoffs then, Mitch. Obviously, you get 3 teams. You get 3 teams that go to Masters, 3 slots from the EMEA. So obviously,
world champs.
So really, the winner of the upper final is guaranteed, right? A spot at Masters.
So the participants of the upper final are guaranteed. So Guild and Fnatic are already through because they'll go to lower final, which is already top 3. So basically, the only slot left to be decided is FPX and Mech. One of those teams will be going forward, and either way, it's going to be a tremendous loss for whichever one goes down. But I think Mech have had a really shaky season, and FPX have had, you know, their reasons as well. But they're looking better to me nowadays, and they eliminated, I mean, the teams that are already out, Team Liquid and Ascend, literal world champions are out of here, and we're potentially about to lose the Masters 3 champions as well. So this is a real changing of the guard in EMEA, and we're feeling it definitively right now. That is, unless Mac decide to just reverse sweep and take top spot.
I mean, for me, it's got to be Guild, Fnatic, and FPX that get through, right? I don't really feel like it.
I'm with you.
We on the same page, Vans?
Yeah, I'm on the same page. I think even Fnatic, for me, probably has that #1 seed. They're probably going to be the ones that are going to win the EMEA playoffs, too. They've been just looking too good right now. The latest additions have been unstoppable forces for the team. On top of that, as you know, we give a lot of credit to Enzo, that it'll freeze a lot of space into like Boaster being able to support the team a little bit more as like KO, the flex, and also call for the team. I think the equation right now for the success is actually quite high for Fnatic to win. Third one, I'd probably go with, or second one, I'd probably go FPX. Actually, I still believe that they have what it takes to be like a really, really good second place team right now in the EMEA playoffs.
Yeah.
Let's talk about seeding. How important is it out of 3 qualifying teams to get that first seed?
There it is.
Yeah, that's the thing. I spoke to some of the players, and I think the vibe is essentially like it's very important because we don't know how important it is. But last time the teams got to skip a week, I think the feedback from that, from what I understand, was that that's maybe a disadvantage from the teams that went in. They were like,
ask the fucking guard.
yeah. So I'm not sure that's, maybe you're like, hey, second place could be a good happy medium. But no, I think realistically, the first place, you're going to imagine that it's either going to be the same, which I think some teams will like, some teams won't. But the other side of it is that it should be better. I think they'll take some of the feedback, hopefully, and make it a slightly better system. If that happens, first place is, invaluable. It's gold dust. If you're going to have some sort of an advantage, some sort of a deeper seeding, even if it's a game you get to skip, that's huge. So I think they're in a good spot over on Fnatic. The way I've been thinking about it is that they'll take top because they're not going to take their foot off the gas. And that's the only reason I ever see these teams kind of slow down, when they're like, I don't give a shit, it's seeding. Let's just pick fucking Yoru, FaZe, just pull everyone out of the cracks.
Let's go. Yoru go 3 and 7 on first kill, first death. Yoru,
Yoru was good. They had a lot of good ideas.
He was 3. Yeah, I mean, he did not have successful entry game on that particular map.
Absolutely. Versus Fnatic, it's not good.
I think it was sick.
I think, honestly, I look at it and I don't think that, like, even on Icebox, I don't think that it was bad. I think that Fnatic were really good at shutting the fuck down that play. Whereas, like, if it's against Guild, for example, I don't think that they have the necessary, well, I'm not going to say Guild in particular, but let's say another top 5 team, to not put a target on anyone or on myself. Yeah, I think that's something that will catch 9 out of 10 players off guard. Just happens that Fnatic are all 1 out of 10.
So
no, that sounds bad. Insane. 10 out of 10. They're amazing.
Yeah, was that 1 out of 10?
I don't know. They're the one. Okay. They're the exception to the rules. What I was trying to say, but I just made it sound like they're shit. So
that's Mitch. Yeah, he had 10, but he out there giving Fnatic 1 out of 10. You know what I'm saying? Good lord. All right, let's talk about NA then. The playoff situation's a bit more cut and dry for North America. There's only 2 slots for Masters.
Yeah.
But I think the fact that there's some serious depth among the remaining teams is undeniable, right? We just talked about FaZe Clan and what they were able to do to a team like 100 Thieves, who many people expected to really be knocking on the door of the very top echelon. We have an upper final of x0tek and Optic, right? Winner will get a slot. And then that lower bracket consists of Optic, NRG, and FaZe Clan. So we've got 2 teams that we're sending. I mean, I honestly think that, like, Optic will win against x0tek, and then x0tek will run the lower bracket. But I mean, there's some insanely frightening opposition down there.
Dude, this is a crazy top 4 because no matter which chamber is going to pop off for me is going to probably decide the fate of these teams going into the top 2. Because you look at Optic, it's going to be Yay. You look at x0tek, it's Cryocells. You look at Energy, it's Text. You look at FaZe, it's fucking Dicey. And all of those 4 guys are fucking popping off as fucking chamberman. And finally, we're going to see, like, some good of, like, oh, we don't really have anybody to shut down anybody as a chamber. That duel in itself for those 2 players, for those 2 type of players on each team for that role is going to be insane. I still think Optic's going to take the first one, but this is going to be a very close one. I think I'm going to have to change now that my EGs and Ghosts are gone. I'm going to have to go with another underdog favorite, which is probably going to be FaZe Clan.
Oh, it's a common L for known x0tek doubter Van Silly.
Yes.
Common L!
Rory's gonna hate me more and more every time, but it's all good.
How many times I got to prove you wrong? That's what I'm saying. All right, Mitch, what do you reckon? If you're competing in the crapshoot here, who do you want? Okay, let me frame it differently for you. I'll give you special treatment here. Who would you like to see North America send? Who would you like to have the chance to expose in Copenhagen?
I'll tell you what. I'll take it a different direction. Even I'll say I want Optic to go. Second place. I want Optic to go because I want them to taste the EMEA's vengeance. But other than that, I think I've made it clear on this show over the last year and a half. I'm a BCJ rider, motherfucking die. Me and BCJ go back to the battalion days. All right, I believe whole fucking heartedly in this man, and finally it's paying off. I'm gonna say x0tek's taking top spot.
Mitch,
Optic don't have a chance.
Mitch Ben, it's the opposite. Optic needs the revenge against EMEA teams, which is why I want Optic to go, because for Masters of last year, they didn't play any EMEA teams.
That's right.
And then the last time, and then they got thrashed by fucking M3C during like Masters 3, wasn't it, or something like that, right?
So it seems like there's a pretty easy way to make the finals. Just don't face any EMEA teams. It's fair.
I mean, fortunately, last Masters, not many EMEA teams got out of groups, so that wasn't so.
That's the other thing. That's the other thing.
Next segment. Let's go.
All right, we'll give Mitch man a chance to catch his breath. We'll be back after the break. We're going to talk with x0tek, the new head coach for Cloud9 White. Stick around for that long-form interview on the other side of the break. If you've been enjoying Valoranting, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you get every episode hot off the presses. Right, so plenty of topics around the grounds to sort of cover this week. I kind of like how we've set ourselves up for potential disaster and embarrassment with our predictions of who's going to be going to Masters, but it's pretty well cut and dry at this point now. So, we don't have to choose from 8 teams, just from like 3 or 4. Thank fucking God. Great way to hedge our bets. So we obviously talked a little bit about Cloud9 White before the break and, with the changes, or well, half of the change, I guess. We talked about Annie Droy departing the team, but obviously she has a replacement on this roster, and there are other sort of changes happening as well. We want to take this opportunity to welcome to the show for the first time, x0tek, who comes in as the new Cloud9 White head coach here, looking to take this team into a new era of prosperity and success. Hey, Reed, thanks so much for joining us, man. How are you?
Hey, doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. Look, I think that your background and your pedigree is quite impressive here. Some people might actually not know just sort of how far you go back. So I'm curious to sort of get you to share with us what's your history been like in esports, the FPS interest, your background, and obviously because coaching, I think, is a very specific skill set. And a lot of people approach that from different angles, but almost everybody has like some background or again, like some sort of skill set that they look to try and leverage in that craft. So tell us a bit about yourself and how you came to be where you are now.
Yeah, so I started competing, a very long time ago, back in 2002, in Age of Mythology. So it's sort of an RTS game, right? One of the classic Age of Empires spinoffs.
Fantastic.
And I was too young, essentially.
On PC? On consoles?
On
Sorry.
PC, on PC.
Okay. I was a DS player myself.
I don't hold that against you. So
I remember the LAN days of Nintendo DS Age of Mythology.
It was intense. It was cutthroat. Nintendogs was brutal. All right. It was absolutely brutal back then. Okay. So Age of Mythology was where I sort of got my initiation, and I tried to compete in a WCG event, and I got 2 rounds in when they realized I was, I think, 10 years old, and they disqualified me. And so it was kind of a bitter start to esports. But I fell in love with strategy games, and that sort of influenced everything I did after that. Whether go on.
No, sorry. I was just going to comment because you said you're trying to compete at World Cyber Games in 2002. I was like, holy shit, man, that was a fucking long time ago you're competing. I'm fucking 38, and I'm looking at you. You look like you're not 38. So I was like, how the fuck do you look so young?
I was at 11, I reckon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
well,
I was 4. It's all good.
Well, that's why they kicked me out. I was too young. I was way too young.
That's awesome.
So from there, I remember it back then. It wasn't even a Google search. It was an AOL search. I searched strategy games through the AOL web portal and found Tactics Arena Online, which was this turn-based strategy game that meant the absolute world to me. It's still to this date probably my favorite game, and I just obsessed over it. And it's the first game I was able to win championships in. I won multiple Grand Slam titles in that game. This was back before everything was esports, so it was all the cash leagues, right? The cash tournaments.
Oh,
And then the game died. As games do, they sort of go through cycles sometimes, and that's how I got into the FPS space. My guild at the time was like, "Hey, Reed, like we're playing this game called Crossfire. Like, why don't you give it a shot?"
Was so for Tactics Arena Online, was it like an RTS?
Uh,
Like an online RTS kind of thing, or
yeah, so it's a turn-based game. There's a fan remake going around out there.
is it like the Final
Tactics.torankings.com.
Fantasy Tactics games, like the sort of
Yeah,
like
very much
Oh,
so.
mid-based
Very
okay.
much so.
Okay.
Very
Or
much
Heroes
so.
of Might and Magic, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, very
How
much
did I
so,
never
very
know
much
about
so.
this? Holy moly!
It's a
I would've
classic.
played
It
the
was
shit out of that.
it was the
You
biggest
just
game on
opened a door
Addicting
for
Games.
Uber. He just fucking loves these type of fucking
I'll
games.
link you
Fucking
after, man.
love these
I'll link you
players,
after.
yeah.
There's still a scene, a couple hundred people going at it.
Yeah, and now you talk about Crossfire as well, x0tek, and I think when I was like actually googling up your name in Crossfire, I think you have like a fan page of like 27,000 likes, followers. You probably apparently made a mark as well within the scene because some aspiring pros were looking up to you of like how to use the AK into like the FPS genre. So how'd you go about to translate that skill set from Age of Mythology and RTS over to an FPS and be dominant in that as well?
Yeah, so when I started, I was terrible. I was, you see the jokes of people like spraying at people's knee. I was a kneecap shooter when I started, and I'd never struggled with games before, right? It had always come easy to me with strategy games, whether it was chess or Age of Mythology or Tactics. I mean, it came easy to me. And when I started playing FPS games, suddenly it wasn't easy. And so, I was addicted, of course, because it was I was terrible, so I had to get better. Um, and yeah, that's when I started really getting into the aspects of learning the game and understanding how do you improve at something, how do you help people improve, how do you lead teams effectively. Um, because I was so bad that I couldn't rely on just being talented. I had to kind of dissect the game and figure out how do I get better at something when, I'm 17 I started at 17 in the FPS space. And that's kind of old for people to start playing FPS games sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I kind of had to use every trick I could to learn and improve. So fast forward a year after I started, I had my breakout game, and not WCG, WCA, because they got bought out. So it
Yeah.
kind of was it was kind of bittersweet for me to like go back and be like, all right, I'm ready to compete now in a different game. But yeah, so I had a breakout year. I was this opper at the time. I didn't use the AK yet. I was an opper, and a year after that, I was playing in the pro league.
Okay. And this naturally transition over to you switching over to CS:GO. But what I actually find it very interesting too is like the way you're approaching these games or the way you're explaining your career. It always seems like you always wanted to look into like wanting to help people out. So is this like just a natural transition to be like, oh, I just want to start coaching ever since you went into like the FPS genre? Because again, at 17 and 18, yes, maybe a little bit too young to start like the pro path. I don't think so. I think it's a great age to start. But I also think that now, if you're still at a very young age, but already looking at the coaching aspect of it, was it always something that was behind your mind, just to be like, I want to just dissect and try to lead a team from the bench more than just trying to lead a team with your fragging ability?
Yeah, so I was an IGL for 6 years, I think, in Crossfire.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it really started just wanting to help people and I feel like you owe an obligation as someone who's successful in esports to help people not reach your level if you're competing, because you want to you want to be better, right? You want to be better.
Yes, of course.
But you sort of owe it to give back to the community and to help build people up. And I felt that very strongly even early on. So if you ever go through my old YouTube videos, a lot of my more popular videos are the ones I've made showing people strategies or how to deal with a mental game or how to maximize their improvement. And these are things that made it easier to transition into coaching, but I don't think it was my goal starting off. No. Uh,
Mm.
I kind of view them as separate endeavors entirely, because as a competitor, you have very different goals versus as a coach.
Mm.
Just obviously here, just seeing some of your content, obviously on YouTube. I kind of want to angle a little bit more into sort of how you started to get into the academic side, I guess, of esports. And we talk about starting as an IGL and wanting to help people. like a lot of your like a lot of your posts and stuff like that talk about like the kind of literature you're trying to consume and sort of you know, the books that you're recommending and stuff like that. So I'm kind of curious about like sort of you know, what switched you on to start, you know, going behind the scene and talking much more about the mental game, right? That was actually one of the videos that we were sort of showing there, because a lot of your suggestions here, and you said like your biggest influences about books, a lot of these are talking about the mental side of playing it and competing, and I think it's something that's not very thoroughly explored, especially in Valorant to date. So I'd love to know like how these have sort of benefited you as a competitor, and so maybe what the other takeaways for other people that are wondering about what resources they could consume to improve their mental game specifically.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head where there's sort of this lack of knowledge and even just energy put into it into handling the mental game, and yet it's something that everything comes from the mind, right? Where we don't play a sport where if you're 7 foot tall, like it's not going to help you in esports, right? It's entirely mental, and even in all athletics, the mental game is massively important. So yeah, it's something that we don't have enough focus on. I got into it early on, and it's kind of how I even transitioned into Valorant as a funny story we can get into later, I guess. But yeah, it's something I got into early on when I was becoming an IGL, because my first conception, as an 18-year-old kid who's never IGL, never even played FPS games before, and you're trying to lead a team, you realize very quickly that there's way more to being an IGL and being a leader on a team than just being didactic and saying this is what you have to do. This is the strategy we're going to run. Peak this, do that. And I wasn't very good at those things. So naturally, I looked to other sports. I looked to tennis. I looked to golf. I looked to baseball, to piano playing, to every sort of competitive and cutthroat endeavor out there to see what I could learn. Josh Whiteskin, you mentioned books that people could consume. The Art of Learning by Josh Whiteskin is a fantastic, phenomenal book. A guy who he was a world chess champion and retired from chess and then became a martial arts world champion. And it's sort of his approach to learning and the mental side of performance. And there are tons of aspects like that and stories and people you can learn from in every sport. And I think if you want to succeed, especially if you think like you're not a good leader or you're trying to push yourself, even not as an IGL, but just as a team captain or a powerful force within your team, you're sort of doing yourself a disservice if you don't look to other people who've done it before you.
I love that you brought up sort of tennis and the mental game behind that, because I think that's what, as a young competitor, playing tennis was where my lack of mental fortitude was laid bare,
Oh no.
especially in singles. Oh yeah, I mean, I was like a mini John McEnroe there. But looking back on it, I can, you know, I have to respect tennis players for their ability to maintain and sort of build up that sort of mental toughness, because I didn't have it as a kind of younger person, or the discipline to go along with it here. So you know, think about these resources now. I
Still
don't know about
breaking
you,
golf
Mitch, man,
clubs
but I
today.
kind of wish I fucking read a few more of these books in my younger years.
Listen,
Brick.
maybe that pro Rocket League career would have went better for me, but there's always the next esport. Speaking of that, jumping
I
from
believe.
one esport to yeah, I'm glad I've got your seal
Looking
of
like a
approval
true
on that one. Let's
shoutcaster,
go.
by the way. There's always the next game.
I can't wait to hear the next line. And Luke scores a goal just like that.
And it's the flip reset for the it's gonna be amazing.
Perfect.
But yeah, so I'm thinking like CS:GO, right? That's a
Yeah.
game I can understand. It's where I come from, and I made the leap to Valorant. Pretty much day one. I was playing the beta, the alpha when I got a key. God damn, it took a while to get a key, but yeah, like I was in there day one. It was still a lot. It was still a lot to learn, and as new agents came out and stuff. What is it like for you jumping from CS to Valorant? How has that journey been, like picking up all the different agents, and now as the game expands even further and further, we got another map coming, maybe an expansion of the map pool further down the line, who knows? I feel like it's one of the more difficult games to jump into from my perspective, but how do you feel on it?
Yeah, so to be clear, I never competed professionally at Counter-Strike. It was sort of
Mhm.
after I retired from Crossfire, I competed at like the advanced level of
Mhm.
CS just casually with some friends,
Yeah.
but I never competed professionally at it. But ironically, when I first started coaching Valorant, I hadn't really played the game very much.
Mhm.
I was good friends with the sports psychologist from the Sonics. Um, yeah, you can see there's the first time I ever played the beta. Uh, um,
Hmm.
but after the beta, I hadn't played it really at all. I was playing Counter Strike, and I'm good friends with the the former sports psychologist of the Susquehanna Sonics. And when they were looking for a coach at the time, I was coaching an Egyptian Crossfire team. Now, I'm very, very happy to see them succeed after I've left. When I joined them, they were at the bottom of they were sort of the second best team in Egypt, and now currently they're the number one team in the pro league for all of Europe. So
Ooh, nice.
just really,
Which team
really
was
good
that?
journey for us to have together. Nubis
Anubis.
Esports.
Yeah.
Anubis.
Oh, Anubis. Oh, sick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, those guys are great.
So yeah, so I was coaching them at the time for Crossfire, and they wanted me to transition to Valorant. And I was like, like I don't know if I want to go out to I don't know if I want to move out to Egypt right now. It's there's a whole pandemic going on. And as I was having those dialogues, Michelle, who the sports psychologist with Sonics, she reached out to me and said, "Hey, we're looking for a coach in Philadelphia. Would you be interested? I know you don't have a lot of experience in Val." And yeah, I talked to the players. They had the mentality I look for when I approach a team to see if I'm a good fit to coach them. And the rest is kind of history. We ended up unfortunately falling one round short in VCT. It killed me. It still kills me, but it's I'll work that nightmare off in therapy a decade or so down the line, I'm sure.
I know.
Wait,
what that's like.
that was also like an era where you guys almost qualified, where it was still was it still Miniature and Jason in your roster? And
Yeah,
I think
it
I think
was.
you guys were probably the first roster that I was looking at in North America that was already playing like Ascent with no duelist, and you had like a Chamber and KO in there. So that was actually already looking at changing the
curve.
meta and being ahead of the curve. Before now we're starting to see like a lot of these like triple initiator, barely any duelists, or whatever is going on in Ascent. So good work put into that. I know you guys have been pretty close to qualifying from like a 13-1 loss on split against Sentinels when the debut started to almost qualifying for VCTs. I mean, it's still a great improvement. I want to take a side question actually that makes no sense with all these questions, because I was casting the Red Bull Campus Clutch last summer, right? And it was actually the Egyptian team out there.
Anubis. Yeah, the
exactly.
huge comeback, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm casting, and I'm calling him Anubis, right? But everybody in chat in my DMs are saying it's Anubis, Anubis, Anubis. Is it Anubis or Anubis? Somebody tell me how to.
Anubis.
There you go.
Anubis.
Thank you. Now I made it clear. That's all I had to say.
This was Van Silly.
I mean, it depends on
Fuck
where
you
you're
to
from. It depends on
everybody
where
that
you're
messaged him. This was he wanted to call them out right now. Let me just prove it to all you motherfuckers.
Yeah.
I was
get
right.
fucked on chat.
That's actually the whole reason they invited me on. Van Silly just had to get back at everyone. This is his
we checked
playing
it first.
4D chess.
Exactly.
He said if it's Anubis, don't fucking bring him. Just tell him we don't want it. We're booked up.
I wondered why you asked me that before you sent me the invite. It's crazy.
That's why we said we might have a slot, and then we were like, yeah, actually that slot opened
makes
up.
sense.
Come on.
We opened up. We opened up.
I'm kind of curious. I think like we didn't skip it, but obviously we talked about your transition to Sonics, but I'm kind of curious about like the actual transition to Valorant, right? First of all, what made you sort of want to do it, right? We saw that tweet. I guess I should start learning Valorant, right? What was the motivation there, and like what were your first impressions? Because he made this tweet. He actually showed it where he sort of said that like these agents' abilities aren't actually just utility, and people are really underselling this. So I'd love to know like kind of the way you viewed the game when you sort of came in, and sort of how you felt it compared to a game like Counter-Strike, which you put in a lot of hours.
Yeah, so too many hours. Many hours in the 2 years I played it. So I think that when I came in, I was in a very lucky position that I had top level FPS experience in Crossfire for years and years and years, and Valorant's very similar to Crossfire mechanically. So I was able to bring in sort of a fresh strategic take, without sort of having, because a lot of the players who are the best in the world right now, even a lot of the coaches, have been playing since beta, right? And no matter how hard you try, you're always going to have a little bit of sort of social inertia or idea inertia maintaining the status quo. And so I think that was a huge advantage coming in sort of with a fresh take, and a disadvantage at times. There were times I would say something and the players on the Sonics would be like, "Are you sure, man? Like I don't think that's how that works." And I was like, "Oh, my bad." But yeah, so the way I view the game, like with utility, is I think that everything can be broken down into like a mechanical aspect, and then very simple, like you want very simple flexibility around that. So for me, something I've said for years and years is that if you could have a choice to be the smartest player in the world or the best mechanical player in the world, you'd pick the best mechanics every single time. And that's true for most games out there. Short of like chess, I suppose. It's true for almost every game that the mechanics are what decides success. And so when I look at utility, I don't think of it as just from like a strategic macro POV, like, oh, what can this? So the chamber teleport's a great example. When he first came out, a lot of coaches I would talk to were like, we don't see it. He's hard to synergize with. His trips are okay, but you can't really do a ton off of them. His teleport's okay, but there's not really a lot of pre-round places to TP to. And I was just thinking of it from the tactical individual POV, like, what do you mean? Like, this is a jet dash you can use 7 times around. Like that was my whole take on it. And that's been similar for a lot of different agents. Yoru's the one. Yoru, fingers crossed, Yoru stock's rising. I think he'll be kind of seeing a bit of a resurgence on maps like Haven, Ascent,
Yeah.
in the coming months.
Yeah. I could see that when you're talking about Yoru, because again, maybe where we're using the example of like the FPX Fnatic on Icebox, it wasn't the best, but like how FPX were using it, Yoru on Breeze was actually quite nice, where the timing with the TP is also timing with the flashes. So once you land down the mechanics of the timing of putting your TP, flashing, and getting a decoy out when it's getting shot, and then TPing towards it, so that you actually break crosshair placement on your opponents to get kills. I think you're going to start seeing a lot of good space creation with a Euro itself. But that said, I mean, let's pivot then over to Sonics, over to Cloud9 White now. How did that transition come about? Like, where was like the end of the era for yourself with Sonics, and how did the conversation start with Cloud9 White?
Yeah, so with the Sonics things, so post VCT1, we had that, sort of the underdog comeback.
Yes.
We were ranked like 30th going into VCT. We ranked 10th is where we peaked, right? So we
Yep.
ended up being 10th in an A at our peak in there. Kind of sad to see it spiraling down a bit right now, but I think they'll be able to recover. Getting fingers crossed. But yeah, so when that ended, we had a lot of dialogues about what we needed to do moving forward. And at the end of the day, the organization wanted to go in kind of a different direction. And so that's where I ended up stepping down. And then very shortly after, Jason stepped down, and very shortly after that, Bob stepped down. So it was a very quick and rapid deterioration, I suppose. I stayed on for a couple of extra weeks to help them vet new coaches. I still support the org, still support the players. I think they're great guys. But yeah, it was just a different direction, Sonics. So then from there, I was still kind of in the midst of what I was going to do. I had a couple of offers in the collegiate scene to go to from the coaching perspective, a couple of offers for professional teams who were interested in trialing. But of all the people I talked to, the ones who I sort of resonated with the most were Cloud9 White. Mostly because when I go to join a team, I don't want to work with a team that just is like that enjoys competing, right? To me, there's like a big difference between people who enjoy competing and people who are competitors. So, not to name too many names, but the Sentinels are a great example, where it's very obvious that they have people on their team who enjoy competing, who love competing, but aren't like really competitors in the sense of they want to sacrifice everything to be the best. And I think that there are a lot of teams who have players like that. And when I spoke with Cloud9 and I talked one-on-one with all the players, there is that hunger there to not just be the best female team, but to be the best. And they want to be competitive tier 1 players across the board. And that's what drew me here.
Awesome.
So, I mean, we've interviewed multiple personnel from Cloud9 before. I mean, Mitch, you can probably even speak to this as well. We've had, probably every Cloud9 coach, I think, on the show by now. And Mitch, I don't know about you, but it always seems like there's a strong system there, right? Across all their games, not just Valorant.
Yeah, and I guess a lot of that comes down then to like your interview process, your hiring, like when you're getting involved with them, what's the process of like Cloud9 reach out, they say, hey, we're interested. Is it a lengthy trial? Like you're going into a team that already has a lot of success. I imagine that's something they're also kind of like, you want to guard the secret formula, right? You don't want to let too many chefs in the kitchen. So how did that one come about?
Yeah, so I can't speak to the overarching process, right? I'm fairly new here, but how it worked with me is that um so I had sort of reached out to a couple of teams that I'd heard good things about, and when I did that, Izzy Nuki from Cloud9, she's one of their
Yeah.
team managers,
Yeah.
reached back out to me and said, "Hey, we saw that you were potentially looking for a coaching position. Would you be interested in hopping on and talking to the players and seeing if we're a good fit?" So I had an interview with her. I worked one on one with their coach, the other coach of Cloud9, Moonchopper. I had interviews with him, and then for my own self, I like to sit down with all the players one on one before I commit to a team and see what their goals are to see if there's alignment there. Because
Mm.
I don't want to waste their time if we're not a good fit, right? Like I
Mhm.
don't want to come in and say
Sure.
like, okay, we're gonna do X and Y and Z, and then no one's on board. Like that's not gonna get us anywhere. Um, so yeah, it's really important on my end that we align there. So I talked with all the players, and then yeah, shortly before VCT, their first VCT run this year, I came on for about, or I guess the most recent VCT run. I came on for about a week before VCT. I helped prepare for that, and we ended up making day two, which was good. It was the first VCT we'd done that in a while, but fell short ultimately. I think. Oh man, if you look at the VLR pay, it was brutal. Like especially like we lost the girl kissers 2-0 the first time, and then the second time, I think we lost by like one round to Dark Zero. Like Melt, oh, it was so tragic. It was like a 13-11 loss. Oh, again, heartbreak.
Yeah.
So it was but yeah, so we saw some improvements, and then uh, yeah, a couple of weeks later, we finalized the details.
So Rory was sleeping on the couch at that point after that match between Cloud9
You
White
know,
and
I
Girl Kissers.
that if it were me and I was competing against like my girlfriend, like it'd be GG, it'd be over, game over.
That's why he's praying to
I,
God
I
his
can't,
teammates are stepping up.
yeah, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
There too much residual.
No, for
But
sure.
yeah, it's I do think though, I think that's one of the hardest things, and it's a testament. I'm really glad they have that because it's
Mhm.
it's hard if you're a competitor to date and have regular relationships sometimes, not just to
Yeah.
travel, but it's hard for people not in esports to understand. What do you mean you're giving me 100% of your free time? We only hung out for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my free time. I don't know what to tell you.
That's exactly actually what I wanted to get to because earlier in the show we were talking about Annie Dro leaving the roster most
Mhm.
recently, and she was mentioning how she likes the content creation, but there's also a lot of work that has to be put into practice. So when you actually join Cloud9 White and you're going through the processes of like what's the training regimen for the team, is it something that you're trying to evolve for the team right now so that not everybody feels overworked, or is it something that is already implemented that you're just following ahead? What's your vision there for the preparation with Cloud9?
Yeah, I mean, one of the nice things about wanting to be the best at something is that it's not complicated,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's
Mm-hmm.
you put in the right amount of time in the right ways. And that sounds like a non-answer, but it really is that simple, which is that if being the best and improving is your number one priority, then that's all you need to do. Everything else takes care of itself.
Yeah.
The details are exactly that. They're details. So for me, right now, one of the big things that we kind of want to do since we're in this transition phase, you mentioned Annie just left, and
Yeah.
we signed Bob, who
Yeah.
I got to work with on the Sonics as well.
Exactly.
So uh, but yeah, so whenever you're in this transition phase, it's more about rebuilding those sort of fundamentals, making sure you have a strategic base to sort of play off of, more so than working on like, you know, how are you getting the most value out of the death matches you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
How do you balance, your aim labs training routine versus your in-game unrateds that you play to try new ideas, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's less of a focus right now than getting the team all sort of on the same page. But yeah, that's a huge component.
You said that obviously you like to meet with players one to one and kind of just try and find out if you're aligned or you kind of have the overarching goal, right? I think like those goals can be really determined by values and that those are the real things that underpin, I guess, any sort of cooperative venture. So I kind of want to know, like, how do you define success in, let's say, like the first 6 months of your tenure for this team? Like, what is the goal? Obviously there's some fairly obvious components to that answer, but I'm curious to see like to what degree, what it was that sort of pushed you over the edge and said, yeah, this is a team I want to commit to. And yeah, like we're on board. We've got our goals lining up. Like, can you give any insight into sort of how you decided this was where you wanted to be going forward? Because it's not just commitment from the team side, but also you.
Yeah, well, my friend Jordan kind of made fun of me. He's like, "You realize it's a lose-lose read, right?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, they're the best. So if they keep winning, it's not you. It's not on you. And if they lose, it's all your fault." So it's yeah. So and it kind of highlights where my thoughts were. Where I was like, well, at the end of the day, and I'm sure you've heard this time and time again whenever you've had people from Cloud9 White on, Game Changers isn't the goal. That's a
Yeah.
byproduct of being the best female team, but it's never the focus. The
Mm.
focus is to be as good as possible. And it's one of the things where for me that's always my goal in any team I'm in, which is I want to push us as far as we can possibly go. That's just as true now as it was when I was a player. Like the thing about having like I don't know, a ranking or a trophy as a goal is that it's sort of ephemeral, right? Like you either
Yeah.
get it and then you're satisfied and you're done.
It's a little
Right?
arbitrary. Yeah.
Yeah, or you get it and you keep pushing, and it's like, okay, well, so what are you really trying to do? And yeah, the answer is we're trying to be as good as we possibly can.
Mhm.
And when I talked with everyone one on one, that's a big thing I look out for because a lot of people, I mentioned earlier that some people are in it because they enjoy competing, but I really look for people who are competitors, people who are willing to prioritize competition, and people who are willing to not just sort of put in the token effort to not, and I don't mean to say token effort because it still is work, right? But there's a
Mhm.
difference between people who there's a difference between people who end up being professionals at a game and people who end up being dominant or consistently good for a long period of time at a game. And those are the people who I like to align more so than people who are just professionals, so to speak.
Mm.
So before we move on to kind of the end of this year, I want to jump even further ahead and ask sort of what the lay of the land looks like right now coming into next year for you guys. Obviously, it's a big thing for us having like franchising coming up as casters. It's the next year is a big question mark, and we've got some answers and some that spur on more questions. But for you guys now, what is the franchise outlook looking like? Do you expect that Cloud9 White will be there?
We'll see. I don't really know all the details that have been codified yet, but we'll see. Like I said, our main focus is being as, and this sounds like a bit of a non-answer,
Yeah, it's the
but
one step
it's
inside.
our goal is to be as good as we possibly can. The
Mm,
franchising side of things will take care of itself.
yeah.
If what that means is if 6 months from now we're the best Cloud9 roster, so be it. But that's
Okay.
that's that's the sort of the technicality, detail oriented side of things. We're just focused on
Yeah.
getting better.
I
Mhm.
like that. So it really is like keep the players' head in the game, keep the even coaches and so on in the game. Who cares about, what's ahead of us in the road? We're not there yet, right? Like that's
Mhm.
further down. Deal with it when it comes here.
Yeah, day to day, day to day.
Yeah.
Mm.
At least we get into like wanting to be the best, which of course we know Cloud9 where currently is the best in North America. And again, taking a step back into what we talked about earlier in our show, the amount of slots that are available for the Game Changers Berlin LAN at the end of the year. For me, am I a little bit too narrow-minded to think that 8 teams is okay? Just because again, my train of thought is because if Brazil only has one spot, most naturally it's going to go to Team Liquid because they've been dominating that region. Cloud9 White,
Sure.
Shopify Rebellion to top 2 in North America. EMEA for me, probably G2 is the first. Anybody is the second place. So do you
Mhm.
do you agree that there should only be 8 spots to start? Should there be more? How do you find this competition lowdown?
So I think it depends on the sort of the goal of Game Changers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the goal of Game Changers is sort of inclusivity, right? And it's shown that it's massive. There's a
Yep.
reason that there are so many more girl players in Valorant than in other esport titles, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's it's because of the inclusivity aspect. And as time goes on, once those numbers stop being, 90% guys, 10% girls, you'll start seeing girls play way more often at the top level as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it kind of depends on Riot's goal. If they want just to find the absolute best female team, and that's the purpose of the event, then yeah, I think that 8 doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're doing it, they want to find the best team and maximize that inclusivity aspect, well then more teams is kind of better, right? You get more experience, more exposure. Um, so it just depends on the goals of what Riot has in mind.
Had my mic muted. Let me ask you a question real quick. Just on that.
It was intentional.
Yeah.
It was intentional.
Yeah, it was a little moment of silence, a little bit of anticipation build up. And now my question. So, from my perspective, you know, listening to you talk through that, I'm sort of scratching my head a little bit about the Cloud9. I'm sorry, after the mic thing, I've completely blanked on the way through that sentence. I'll think of it in a minute. There was a follow-up to something you directly said. I can't even, my brain's just stopped.
We were talking about
altogether.
game changers, 8 spots, Ride's vision if they want it more, depending on
it was something about. Oh, that's what it was. Fuck yes. All right. The word Mimi just came back into my head and reminded me. So Mimi back in CS:GO was one of the first players. I don't want to say the first because I don't know that for certain. I know in Asia and Southeast Asia, it's been a thing with like integrated rosters before. But Mimi in Europe was like one of the big headlines because she was a top player. She jumped in CS over to a mixed team and was competing in the main leagues, and that was amazing. In Valorant, you know, I've heard, I mean, even back when I was talking to a few players back in like alpha, beta, before GameChangers had really like kicked off to the level it's at now, and they had said that they had trialed for teams and they had heard like, oh no, sorry, guys don't want to play with a girl, unlucky, and like all this sort of BS. But that was way, way back. That's like CS days, right?
Sure.
I'm wondering, maybe you won't even be able to give an answer on this, but how do you think that we're close now? Do you think GameChangers, first of all, is so far, you know, meeting its goal? From what you've already said, I think yes, like it's promoting female scene and so on. But do you think we'll get a mixed team in the VCT, in the main leagues, within, you know, what kind of time frame do you think we're talking about there?
Yeah. So the way I look at it is it's like a statistics game, right?
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is that I always think of the chess comparison, where in chess, if you look at the average rating of players, guys versus girls, girls are on average higher rating. It's like, well, wait a sec, but the top 100 players are all guys. Or not all guys, but mostly guys, overwhelmingly guys. So what the hell, right? And it's a representation issue. If 95% of your player base is men, then naturally the top slots are all going to be filled by men. So I think that while yes, you may see players, female players who have that skill getting tryouts and opportunities, I know that several of them have already on co-ed teams. Famously Potter, right? She had some success with Evil Geniuses. But I think that until you have that sort of that balance between the two sexes in terms of just the numerical representation, it's not going to be a consistent thing just because it statistically can't be, right? There's always going to be that dominance at the top if there's a big disparity in the player base. It's just how it's just the numbers.
Yeah.
You can't. So, and that's where you ask if Riot's achieving their goals. I think it's done a fantastic job promoting women in esports and promoting women in the competitive scene. But are they done yet? No, there's still a lot further to go to equalize things.
And even then, like in North America here, as we saw the screenshot before, not only Potter, but we also had Claudia, right? That's been part of like that first iteration of trying to have a correct team, where Claudia went over to CLG, and I think she's playing over there right now. And then even SQ yourselves, you guys had Bob in the roster before too. Now Bob is somebody you recently picked up. So let's talk about that roster, right? Because C9 dominantly, C9 White, #1 team in North America, potentially #1 team in the world. Everybody praised of how good Anidro is, and what I like about this is that if you're looking from a holistic or an outside perspective, you're basically going for a Silva to another Silva, right? So you lose Anidro, you bring in Bob. Bob has had a lot of success playing a Silva before with SQ, and also I think even went into a deeper agent pool. Now, are there a lot of similarities between these two players, knowing how Anidro played before, and of course you coaching Bob at the same time? Or is there something more that Bob brings into the roster that's going to propulse C9 White to even more higher lengths and victories?
Yeah, I mean, Bob's the best female player in the world, so
Nice.
that's
Plain and simple.
You know, anytime you take the best person in the world at something and bring them into a team, there's going to be an upgrade, right? And it's we were incredibly lucky that as Annie stepped down to focus more on content creation,
Yes,
Bob was there as a pickup, and that I had, I sort of was able to talk to her, and she trialed for a bunch of other teams as well, and she decided Cloud9 was the team for her. So we were very lucky to have her. Very, very lucky. The stars definitely aligned on that. As for their playstyles, You know, Annie was always from the time I trialed. You know, I'm speaking from a very limited time space, so keep that in mind.
Of course.
But Annie was always she was one of the older players on the team. She was always a voice of maturity. You know, she was able to bring sort of that calming presence to the team in a lot of ways, and to bring some positivity in matches. From what I saw, especially during the VCT run I was there for. Um, and I think Bob being the IGL of Sonics, when she comes in, it really it
Ooh.
really allows for that sort of to be made up.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
so I think she adds that dynamic, but to a different level. It also it takes some of the work off of Mel's plate
Yeah, yeah,
as an
yeah.
IGL, where
Yeah.
anytime you have that secondary voice to where you can say like you can call a strat, and then you know that you can focus on your individual play as the other side of the map is taken care of, right? There's
Mhm,
that voice, that active voice on the other side of the map. It helps you a lot.
mhm, mhm. Dude, that's awesome. So then now it's gonna have to be that type of synergy now to have a double IGL for the team, a better synergy, less clashes,
Well,
hopefully
I
no
wouldn't say
no
double
clashes.
IGL.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say double
Okay, okay,
IGL, but just that
okay.
second voice
Yeah.
Okay,
is
okay,
really
okay.
big. And that
Okay.
there was those voices were already there, which is why this is such a good impact. So Alexis, she's been a fantastic
Mhm.
she's been a fantastic voice on the team. Um, and so now you have it was just a very it was good that with the biggest things Annie brought to the team, Bob is also able to provide. So
Okay.
we're not losing a lot in the vocal department, which is really
Mhm,
good.
mhm.
Let's cast our minds ahead, obviously, because it's an exciting time, I think, in the game changers world, right? A time where not only are you
Mhm.
preparing your team to compete domestically and qualify for the game changers LAN, obviously, is that's been a concern for many rosters, but also looking at the international competition. Uh, Bit of an all-encompassing question here, but I'd love to know like who you're looking out for, and I guess some of the hallmarks of good preparation for an international LAN, one where you're walking into a meta game that might be different, or at least you know less, I guess, expected opponents and strategy you're going up against. Like obviously you have to scout for that and look at a lot of
Yeah.
region specific trends. I'd love to know like what the process is right now for getting this team ship shape for international success.
Yeah, so one of the things that will be really interesting to see, because while we're confident on a team to team basis,
Mhm.
is the Brazilian teams. I think that Brazil has an incredibly strong culture across all of their esports titles of LAN events. They are very much a LAN first region.
Mhm.
And that provides them a pretty big advantage in any international event, because pretty much every Brazilian team has more LAN experience than pretty much every North American team.
Yeah,
That's just a given. And that's been true for Counter-Strike, that was true for Crossfire, that was true for presumably Valorant. I can't speak to exactly what Team Liquid's been doing, but I imagine it's much the same there. So that's interesting. And then G2 goes in, they'll have home field advantage, right? They've been based in Berlin for a long time.
Yeah.
So I think those are interesting dynamics to think of from a storyline perspective. But from a preparation perspective, at the end of the day, it's all about us, and we're more worried about the co-ed scene. We're competing against the co-ed
sure.
teams. That's our as much as it would be nice from the storyline perspective to be like, oh, we're terrified of like G2 goes and that'll be a great game. We're not really. And hopefully they surprise us and can give us a good game. We're going to be as prepared as humanly possible. But good luck.
Mhm,
Right.
mhm.
I mean, you guys have to sort of split your focus a little bit, or rather, it actually sounds like the what is maybe the highest priority right now is competing, against these co-ed teams, and the
Mhm.
game changers teams need to give you guys maybe a reason to spend a little bit more time, sort of
Not to
giving.
say, not to say that we won't be prepared. This last game changers, there was an immense amount of preparation that went into each of the teams, to a point where, at times we were a bit disappointed where a team would not have any more depth than what we saw. And, we can look back to the notes and you just see sort of sad emojis in in the notes, like, oh, they did the B strat again. Okay. Like, it's like, so yeah, it's there still will be that intense level of preparation. You can't take, no matter what level of team you're playing against, you can't take, whether it's the best team in the world or if it's, a tier 50 team, you have
Mhm.
to take them seriously
Yeah.
when everything's on the line.
Yeah, makes
Yeah.
sense. You guys just have a lot on your plate because you're competing in multiple scenes, and
Yeah.
competitions. So, but I guess you can the approach can maybe stay unified between those two. Your preparation for the co-ed scene is analogous
Exactly.
to sort of game changers as well. X0tek, mate, it's been a pleasure to have you here on the show. I'm really pretty excited about this Cloud9 White team because you're right. Your mate was right. You know, you have it's a difficult situation to come into where, you know, it's incumbent upon you to continue this winning streak, and the impact, I guess, of your coaching will be harder to see because, you know, how much headroom, like how far can you take this team? So again, my best wishes and obviously good luck for your roster, man. And I'm sure Vans Mitch agree with me. I can't wait to see what heights you take this team to next.
Exactly, and just to add real quickly too, because I think also for Cloud9 White, the only team that's really taken out a map from them within the Game Changers is Shopify Rebellion. Outside of that, I think it's always been 2-0. And you talk about the amount of preparation that goes into a lot of these Game Changers. There's one coming up right now at the end of July or end mid-July, sorry, for the tournament itself. So I'm hoping the competition is going to get a lot better and none of those, oh no, they're doing the B strat again, as you mentioned again. so yeah, best of luck for that for sure, X0tek.
Yeah, nothing would make us happier than seeing the entire female scene play at a much higher level. We're just waiting for it to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're contributing, I think, as well by setting the standards. So X0tek, thanks for coming on the show, man. Great to talk with you, and obviously good luck going forward in Game Changers and, of course, in co-ed competitions.
Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.
No dramas. Yeah, obviously great chance to get to pick XOTEK's brain. We kind of jump at the chance to talk to a lot of incoming coaches as well, because for me it's a part of the craft that's the most fascinating because of the amount of like the diverse skill sets coaches bring into the scene, and like I'm always interested to see like how they manifest, you know, differently in different structures.
Because for me, the difference too is like when I'm trying to bring a player, or where we're trying to bring a player into an interview, it's like, how did this match go? It's like, oh, you know, I was just hitting my shots.
I shot some heads.
I was just flashing. We got the kills, but then you get into or a manager, and it really goes into like behind the scenes of like trying to build it into that storyline of success. So again, as Rhea was talking about playing chess, they're literally the player moving down the pieces to make sure that they're capitalizing on you know, beating the king or taking your opponent's king. So it's really nice to have
getting to the head of you know, like the heavy head with the crown, getting into that head is always interesting to me. Look, I mean, bit of a contrast here. After the break, we're to catch up with our absolute favorite shit human. Kaplan's going to be joining us on the other side to talk all things Ghost, a team that has delighted and excited us many times. Obviously for them, their journey is done for the time being, but we're looking forward to getting some insights, of course, from Kaplan and for his time on Ghost. So stick around, everybody. We'll be back with that one after the break. Don't go too far.
If you've enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe, and make sure you hit the bell for the future noties, but also comment below with what you'd like to see in our future shows.
VCTNA, at least for this stage, has been a lot of fun, really exciting. I feel like the narrative has been a lot of these teams putting in the work and starting to see the fruits of that labor. Unfortunately, in NA, only 2 teams can advance to Masters this time around. It's tight, and you know, obviously you're dealing with a lot of household names when you try to make it through. I think one of our favorite stories from that open qualifier, number 2 especially, going through group stages and then finally into the playoffs, is Ghost Gaming. And you know, we've obviously been lucky enough to have Kaplan on the show a couple times before. We want to bring him back on today as well, because I think it's been a great run. I mean, going 4-1 in those groups is I mean, feat considering who the fuck was in that actual group itself. So Kaplan obviously here is on an involuntary holiday at the moment, which is regrettable, but great to have you on the show, man. I'm looking forward to kind of casting a fond look back at your run so far, man. How you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. You know, involuntary, chilling out in the sun, involuntary, little 3 p.m. beer, involuntary, resentfully watching Valorant games. It's great. Happy to be here.
What a terrible life. My God. Donate 10 pounds per day to help Kaplan.
Yeah. Fund his beer o'clock escapades, everybody.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, oh man.
We talked about this, like, you know, multiple times when we looked ahead and looked at the structure of the season. We thought, holy fucking shit. There is like a lot of not much if teams are not able to. I mean, it's bad if you're not qualifying for groups, but for those teams that don't make Masters, obviously, and are in position to sort of make LCQ, there's not a whole lot going. Like, fuck me, guys, we're just over halfway through the year, and yet for many, the season is just over. I think
with a question mark of what's going to happen in 2023 with franchising.
Right. I mean, that's a whole nother story. But you know, let's start here. I mean, it's less of a positive note, but I'm curious to get your thoughts on sort of, the structure of the Valorant season, and maybe now with a bit of hindsight, what could be changed to sort of maybe flesh out the rest of this year a little bit more for teams that don't make Masters or that second LCQ.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see like I think when they first talked about the 2022 season, they talked about
Mhm.
having some like third party events
Mhm.
in the later fall kind of after champs and stuff. Holding out hope for that. There's like a Nerd Street 50K at the end of August, so stuff to look forward to.
Mhm.
Um no major complaints there. I mean, LCQ makes it kind of pace out too. It's unfortunate we didn't make it in LCQ, but for teams
Mhm.
that do, they have something to look forward to. Um, I think that the one thing it was rough. The open qualifiers to main event was like, let's see, we qualified on Sunday and then we played XSET on Friday. That was probably like my one complaint about the schedule. It's just like,
The
oh,
turnaround.
congrats, you made main event, fly home. Like your match is in 4 days. By the way, that team's been playing on the Fade patch, scrimming and stuff. Like, good luck.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
pretty brutal.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that feels like it's gonna be the story for how Valorant's been going on for like the past 2 years, right? Because even now, there's no new agent, but the new map's coming out too. So I don't know if it's a potential that it's going to happen during Masters 2, but if not, like you're always gonna have to play catch up, unfortunately, with everything that's going on
yeah,
with Valorant at this point. But you know what? You talked about potential events happening during the fall, kind of like an ignition series that they mentioned when they first announced that calendar. And it brings me to a question when you're mentioning even the NSG 50K, because the run of Ghost during stage 2, not a lot of people would think that Ghost would have made it to even qualify for groups, right? If we want to look back at that hindsight, I think one of the few people is me that you guys are going to qualify. No, just because you guys have been playing a lot of what people usually define as the Mickey Mouse tournaments, right? The Mickey Meows. Playing like the Renegades, playing like everybody else that's in that tier 2 scene, and maybe you're not going to get too much value out of it to be able to go into that run in the open bracket.
Qualified
right?
by beating Complexity, NYFU, BBG, and Knights in that lower
Yeah.
bracket through that open
Yeah.
qualifier. These are a lot of
So-
the teams that you were really butting heads against a ton through a lot of those tournaments. Sorry, man. Carry on.
No, exactly. Butting heads against, you guys have played against these teams most often than none, and then you get into groups, and then you face against Exit where they never get through the open qualifiers because they've gone through before. Was that like a surprise for you guys actually going into week 1 of the stage 2?
You're talking about the
groups?
XSET matchup, right? In groups?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Because you played everybody else in the past in the Mickey Mouse tournaments. Then you get into Exit where you've never really played before until you got into that week of playoffs. Was it like of groups? Was it like a wake up call to be like, oh shit, this is actually a different league? Or is it just like minor things that could have been corrected to potentially even get that win against
Did it
Exit?
feel like a step up, I guess, in competition?
Exactly.
It definitely felt like we were playing better teams, but it didn't feel harder because of that. Like I actually we scrim these teams a lot, right? And we'd been
Yeah,
scrimming
true.
teams like this a lot before. And like Valorant makes sense more when you play teams like this.
Yeah.
It's more manageable. You know who you're gonna play and you can look forward to playing against them. There was less on the line, right? Especially like week 1 main event. Like, yeah, we made it. Like, not a ton to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
You're not you're not in the losers bracket of this qualifier that like decides your year, and you're like 6 hours in, and it's your second or third BO3 of the day. It was kind of relaxing. I just think it was tough to, like I said, we had been playing on the old patch, right? And the Fade patch had been out. Teams have been scrimming it, and we were coming off the back of a 3-week boot camp in Atlanta, and we had like just flown home. We got like a day off, and then we went right back into scrims. So we kind of felt like, oh man, like we gotta play some comps we don't actually love. We don't really want to hold on to. Like we're just kind of jumping right in. I think it was kind of little stuff and feeling like we didn't really get to sort
Yeah,
of like
I mean,
prepare on the same way that some of these teams might have.
even just looking at this matchup versus Exit on this map, where John Cutie's playing Chamber, Koala playing Jet, and then the week after Fade comes in, and then Koala starts playing Chamber. I actually wanted to ask that question too for the preparations within the groups, because you and I had a conversation where when I had the conversation with you about the team's performances. I was like, oh, there's a little bit of overextension of Koala noob on a chamber, Koala noob on a jet, or something like that. What were like the first things you guys had to fix to make sure that you had a very, very strong performance going into group?
The loose ends,
stage
right?
2. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we had to tighten up a lot on our discipline. The discipline we have in man advantage rounds is still not something I'm incredibly proud of, but like the players got way better at it. We kind of had to tighten up. And it was funny going into this. I was like, look, like we hit the W key too much. We're gonna have to and I even kind of said it to Quality, but I was like, you're an insane player, but like I was giving everybody like one thing to work on. I was like, you got to kind of start to realize like you're gonna get punished for some of these peaks. Like you're against some better players. Like I want you to like be more careful about that.
Mm.
And like this isn't a criticism. Like I actually don't think we got much better at that. Like we disrespected people all the way through groups and like took way more fights than was probably appropriate, but like it was our strength and we leaned into it. And I actually am really impressed with how we did that. It's just like, how do we play that advantage round? I knew playing against like slow disciplined teams, they would let us make mistakes and like crawl back into rounds that they should have been losing and stuff. I was actually really relieved when I saw the groups because I felt like teams like Optic, Cloud9, like a bunch of CS players with a ton of experience, they're just going to sit there patient, like holding their angles and just like wait for Ghosts to like be over aggro and overextend. I kind of felt like we had a more of like a Valorant player group. Like there was less teams that were just like swimming in like years and years of tech.
Yeah, sure.
Experience.
I get that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to rewind a little bit. You said moving into groups, it was tough. Coming home 4 days, that reset, and it really does suck whenever we get, and it's every 2 months, and sometimes it's month to month to month, right? If you get an agent, a map, and then an agent, those releases can really mess up the schedule. But I'm wondering then, getting the 1 game a week, getting it moving forward, being very positive feedback across the board from regions, from pretty much every region. Have you put thought into kind of what the ideal format for you from a player, from a team perspective? Like, at least in my mind, it's like NFL, right? You've the year scheduled out. I know week 5, I'm playing this team. Week 20, I'm playing that team, and I need to win X amount to make it to playoffs. Vaguely. What would you like as the team?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of like, I think Valorant lends itself really well to like a league structure, to like weekly games. I know people love tournament circuits. It's fun. They're really enjoyable to watch. You get to fly around and play tournaments. Like I can't imagine it's probably incredibly fun to do that in Counter-Strike. But like when you have a week between each game in Valorant, this is like such a biased answer, but it rewards to me the best parts about the game. Number one, you can get so into like trying to study opponents and like understand how they play the game and their comps, which is like really just interesting and fun. But you also have to adapt way more because of that. Like you can't just play the same comps. You actually have to experiment because you're not just trying to find a new meta between like monthly tournaments. Like you have to show up with a new comp or find a new way to play your comp because you just played that map and you want to play it again next week, and they're just going to tear apart your VODs. And it forces people to be more creative with the agents. There's more experimentation, and I definitely think like the weekly game structure, I felt it was a ton of fun.
It vastly increases coaching workload though as well. That's something that I've
Totally.
noticed. When we have rapid meta shifts in a game, it's pretty fucking hectic when it comes to analysts and scouting for comps.
I'll say this: when I was doing the open quals in EMEA, it was so fucking painful, man, because we would not know who we're playing until like an hour before the game, and we would play the first game, and then you got to figure out, okay, it's gonna be what. So while my guys are playing, I'm looking, okay, what are these 2 teams, and I'm trying to find out about the opponent we've got maybe in an hour out of 2 guys. We've got to figure out who it is. Then they roll up. And fucking half the roster's different. It's just like it was incredibly difficult back then to do any sort of groundwork until you got to day 2 where you had that little bit of a break, or until you got to the main events and you could actually look at the teams. I agree 100%. I think like weekly seems to be the winning formula across the board right now. And we sort of had like a little trial of it, right? To me, this is almost like a trial of the franchise. Do your little 5 weeks. See how it goes, and then think, what if we did it for 20? What if we did it for 30? Would it still work? The viewers still interested, and so on. And I think so far, at least, I don't know how things have been in NA, but it's been pretty good in EMEA. Pretty consistent. The only thing that fucked us up was the major.
I'll even bounce around back and forth on the questions too, as we're going through like the stage 2 for Ghosts, because we just talked about the format being really nice, that it's like a weekly thing where we can fully prepare against a team. And now we get into you guys looking amazing after beating x0tek and then beating the other 4 teams, which we'll have a chance to talk about. But then you get back into a playoff format where, okay, you guys have made it out of groups. Now you have a high seed, but you have to go back into a format where now you have to be good for potentially the next 2 weekends. So was that something that slowed you guys down in the momentum that you've built up from the past 5 weeks, going into like, oh shit, now we have to like hopefully be doing the less mistakes as possible because we won't have an opportunity to do any minute detailed changes to completely anti-strat team?
Yeah, I think there's like no excuses to me for that first game against EG, because like we had like, I mean, we only had 3 scrim days between our
Yeah.
match against Under Thieves and that, but like we still had some time to prep and adjust. I think that NRG game for sure, like you can't go sit there and watch how have they been playing and what have they been doing, and we're coming off the back of a loss straight in the NRG game, and
Mhm.
I'm not complaining that we weren't in losers bracket, but like the one nice thing for the team waiting down in losers bracket is they're kind of vicious. Like they've just had a whole week to just prep and not show
Yeah.
anything, and
Yeah.
then they just get to watch, and they can honestly just prep for Ghosts and EG so that they
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
they're ready either way, and they can sit there and watch that game, and then like you have no idea what you're walking into as the team going down in there.
How does that
It's definitely
happen?
brutal.
Like it always blows my mind when we see a tournament format that just because look at Masters when you got the or when not you but like when a team got that week extra lead, uh, there was benefits and negatives to it. There were some teams there that were like, oh man, I wish we had that extra week to go and scrim, and there were other teams that were like, fuck, I want to be warmed up coming into this, which were the teams that had the extra week, so that was unlucky. But the thing that kind of like again looking at this system, how do we put something together that inherently has an advantage for the other team? You get to prac on a different patch. You get to chill out down there, get extra prac days. Like, just seems crazy that's the kind of reward an upper bracket should have, not the other
Yeah.
way around.
Yeah, I think I mean, like, I don't know how to get behind around the fact that if they want to do a bracket advantage, it's just going to be like that. And to be clear, I'm
Yeah.
definitely not saying it's like unfair. Like, I would way rather be the team who can afford to lose a game. Like,
Mhm.
Oh,
being the
okay,
team who
okay.
just you show up and
Yeah.
if you play and lose, that's it, you're gone. Like that
Mhm.
that sucks. That's very scary.
Sure.
It was just
Yeah.
one small like thing that we had to adjust to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
From a guy that is always like, oh, I just like everybody to have a good game and everybody to have fun. I think there's like a good pro and con to it, right? Because you are part of like the upper bracket. You have an opportunity to lose and have a second chance. If you're at the 4th seat at the bracket, which is energy at this point, you're already starting at the lower brackets. So if you've lost, you're fucking out. So to have the couple of extra days to be like, oh shit, we still have some sort of a chance. If not, it's like, let's put it all on the table. If we're able to beat this team, we have 3-4 days to prepare. Let's get it done, and we could do it, right? And that was the advantage of energy being in the lower brackets. But if they lost, it was over, right? And actually, let's talk about that. Because I want to tie in, Kaplan, how you guys have been unstoppable on Breeze for the whole season. We were getting to a point where I think you guys were 9-0 in stage 2 on Breeze, and you had to play against EG. Then you had to play against Energy, and not only that, I'm pretty sure you guys played Energy during the group stages too, where now you're going against Energy on the second time. They went back to like their old ways of putting Sam back on a jet, but unfortunately, you guys still fell short. So, well, what happened there into your development of Breeze from the beginning of the stage until the loss against Energy?
Yeah, Breeze is first of all, I think Breeze is a pretty aim heavy map. I think it fits us very well. I think like my team has a lot of firepower, and that was a strength the whole time. So I think that's like a reason it's a good map for us.
Yeah.
There's certain comps we really like to match up against. I like to play comps that don't have a KO, so I felt good even this last time going in, seeing the sky. But I think, like, as a coach, it was definitely the biggest mistake I feel like I made, and the thing that I've been stuck thinking about for the last few days is picking Breeze against NRG. We were 15-0 before we played EG
Yeah,
with this
exactly.
roster on Breeze.
Yeah.
And then like EG has this very very annoying style to play against. It's like they have like 5 lurkers on this team. Like they just like all walk around and look for so many lurk plays, constantly flanking and reflanking in these post plants and stuff. And we lost and we were like, wow, we hate playing against that. And we felt like Breeze was a good fit for that. And it's hard to like not tunnel on like, okay, we finally lost one Breeze game. We lost it because of how that team plays. And
Mhm.
we knew we had some holes. I knew like for a long time, like we don't play for Brown Hall very much on defense, and I was
Yeah.
trying to like get us to be more aware of that and find some ways to fix it, but it just didn't feel super comfortable. And it's hard because like I watched EG's VODs, they use Brown Hall a lot on attack on Breeze. And so
Mhm.
I walk away from that game kind of being like, we didn't punish that and like we weren't aware of that. But if you zoom out and watch our game, you see you don't like regardless of what EG did in their previous matches, you see, oh, Ghost doesn't like play for that much and they're getting punished by that. And I think it was kind of I was a little too tunneled in thinking like we'll be aware of our issues and like adjust for NRG and we're like whatever 15-0, 15-1. It's still like
Mhm. Mhm.
Were
15-1 still a pretty good record, right? Let's pick Breeze.
Yeah.
I think in
Were the core
hindsight, like we
takeaways
lost it.
relevant? Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
No,
I'm
no
curious. Like
problem.
the takeaways from the EG game, did they apply against NRG, or was it sort of different weaknesses that you thought were maybe exploited, or do you think you like maybe orbited too heavily around like the things that were your undoing in that EG game? I'm curious to know like how different was the experience between playing those maps against these two different opponents? Because let's be honest, that Breeze was your
Yeah.
draw card and definitely your ticket to the bank, I think, in these playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was very different games except again like a hole we have on defense, EG happened to play in a way that kind of exploited it. And
Mhm.
I didn't think through that NRG probably was well aware of that whole watching our game and watching us lose to it. So I think when we got around the defense, we didn't really like adjust to our problems. And they played like they knew how to beat Ghost Breeze and like they watched Ghost against EG and really had it figured out. And I think we fumbled there. I think like our attack half was fine. Like it was just kind of a bumpy start. And
Mhm.
Yeah.
and honestly, we weren't shooting like I watch my players every day. Like they weren't hitting the same kind of shots they used to and usually do. And maybe picking like a really kind of like aim map in Breeze. I don't know. I think we should have probably picked something else to shake it up. But I think the game could have gone either way. It's really hard to
Mhm.
say.
Yeah. It still definitely looked like at least for looking at week 2, teams really wanted to try to avoid you guys playing on Haven after you guys just crushed the guard on that map too. And big shout out to Matthew as he's in the chat, MCE. So what's that development been like of theory crafting this fade with the Rays and Astra to see that there's such a strong combination of these agents with that breach on this map? Because again, we maybe pre-stage 2, a lot of people are calling everybody else crazy for not for giving up the Sova on the map. And look at Haven now, where you don't really need that Sova anymore now that you have Fade, KO, and Breach.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we were like, I think I was a little lucky to have a team that fit that Haven comp really well. Like
Yeah.
the way our comps start is thinking like, okay, if we can I was excited to find any excuse to have Jet not be viable or necessary because, like, I think Koalnoob's like great on her, but he's also great on Chamber. And I think
Hmm.
Nismo's such an insane duelist. John can just play anything. So we were like, all right, what if and like Nismo has an insane raise. So we start thinking, where do we want to try Fade? And John goes like, well, you can kind of play any initiator combo on Haven, so it's probably not like a really bold move to try to make her work on Haven. Like
Mm.
maybe that's a logic. Like it was a good logic for like that's a good map to try to innovate on.
Hmm.
And I was like, well, we need the breach. Okay, let's try a breach fade. And then we're sitting there going, all right, well, like Chamber is still kind of a must pick. Walnoob can play Chamber. And then we think, okay, Nismo has an insane raise. Wait a minute, this goes really well with the fade. And then a Proto's really comfy on Astra compared to the other smokes lately. We're already
Hmm.
running like nades and the C's and the stun. Like, why not throw Astra stars in there? And it just kind of
Get
like,
owned.
yeah, no, me and my analysts were just sitting there talking a couple nights before we tried the comp, like about these agents. And we're like, wait, it's like we both typed those 5 agents like at the same time, and we were like, "Yep, we're doing that." And we got on like 4 hours before that Haven scrim day, the first scrim day, and we were like, "Let's get in the Valor plant. Let's nerd out together." And then the team gets on, and we're like, "All right, boys, like we got it. Like this is gonna work well." We felt really good about it.
Yeah, I mean, remember there's a fucking fault line from Breach on top of all that fucking C's gravity well nade too. Like, it was like
Yeah.
really, really nice. And actually, I wanted to take the time because we always talk about the Nismo. A Proto's already had a big name and a little bit of clout from the Proto Crosshair in his LG days. John Cutie has already stepped up to the plate after getting a little bit of criticism in the first place. But Brock is somebody that only started getting a little bit more limelight once you guys actually got into the playoffs. So talk me through about this player. Who's Brock and how is he a great addition to this team?
He's awesome. He's like he'll do anything that the team asks him to do. He's such a supportive player. His clutch gene is just like I don't know.
Insane.
I've seen this guy. I think he got some kind of 1v4 against EG like on Icebox or something in the open qualifiers. And I remember him after he won it, everyone screaming. He's just like, dude, I don't know. Like he just like, I don't know how that happened. I don't know what to tell you. Like he just when he's in clutches, it's second nature to him. I don't know.
Yeah.
He's a beast. I think if people watched our open qualifiers, points where we weren't on a hot streak, they would have seen like holy shit, this guy's ability to kind of clutch and close out rounds is insane. It's just we were running so hot for so many of these games recently that like if you're like the Breach Sova like clutch dude and your team's just steamrolling, like you don't get action.
don't
You
get
just
the
stand in the
limelight.
back and
Yeah.
you're like, all right, cool, good game, everybody. And so I think he was slept on a little just because like he doesn't get the first
The
fights,
game
you
state
know?
doesn't let him shine to the same degree.
That's it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the unfortunate irony about him looking much better when you guys are having to dig yourself out of a hole. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly. Lucky to have him there to do that though, for sure.
And fault lines don't count to assists.
Unlucky. Can we? So let's be objective about this. I think because I know when we spoke to you at the start of this campaign, or at least after you guys qualified, we said, all right, like what's the goal here? And I think it's pretty, very expected and reasonable to say, hey, like we want to be a Masters. But as you look back, and I'm sure you've done a bit of this intro and retrospection, can we consider making it to playoffs and having such a sterling record in groups a success for this org, the players, and yourself? Like, is this something that you guys are satisfied with and gives you sort of a staging ground to build further? Like, what's the rough and raw feel from Kaplan about the entirety, the totality of the Ghost Gaming run?
I mean, I'm very proud of where we got. Like, we were fumbling in open qualifiers. We could have not been in main event. We could have not done well. Like at any point, you can not win, and like I'm glad we won as much as we did. It's also really hard to celebrate wins in esports because like
It's never enough.
whenever you win, we win a match, and then I'm like, all right, good job, guys. And, everyone goes off, has their dinner, whatever. And then I'm sitting
Back to
there
the lab.
30 minutes later in TeamSpeak with my analyst, Gunter, and we're like, all right, let's think about the vetoes for next week. Like, what are the comps? Like, what are we feeling? What maps do we need to scrim? And it's like, whenever you win, you're immediately focused on winning the next thing. Whenever you lose, you're like, we should have done better. We could have done better. That
Just sitting
sucks.
it.
Like, I'm convinced the only point where a win really feels good is when there was you like won the international tournament. Like every other win before that, it's straight to more work. It's just kind of the curse of esports.
There's like 4 teams out there that are like, I feel pretty happy. Yeah. Everyone else
dude.
is like,
I mean
and I get that.
I don't know.
mean,
It's yeah.
Do you think that would improve if we had the weekly system? If we had a longer term, right? Less pressure, less like maybe less of a feeling that like, shit, okay, we need to win this next game. We got to get it done today. Or maybe you could take that day and go, let's celebrate, back to work tomorrow type thing.
Yeah, I think it definitely helps. I think like having time between like main event and playoffs be a little longer, between open qualifier and main event be a little longer would feel nice. I do feel like I didn't get much time to celebrate getting into main event, and I didn't get much time to celebrate getting into playoffs because it was straight to work. And even then, it's like a question of like, if you give me more days, am I really gonna celebrate with them, or am I gonna choose to scrim more? Like, I don't know.
I think you know the answer to that one. I have a strong suspicion that your vacation would not be extended, but
Yeah.
What would you have done? What would you have done differently if you could go back and do this whole run again?
Win. Sorry.
Not pick Breeze at the end.
Sure.
I don't know. I think I think maybe we should have slowed down a little at the very end. I do ask myself, were we a little burnt out to a point where like a 2-day weekend somewhere in there, or like one less scrim day for EG? Like maybe, I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. Like at what point is like constantly prepping new stuff versus like, are my players getting a little burnt out? And they haven't said that, but like I saw us play and I saw us look a little tired. We pushed through it, but once it's your 12th win, like I don't know, you got to run out of gas eventually. Maybe we kind of needed to pause and go, we're happy with where we're at. Like we've been the team that's grinding hard to like catch up and prove it. Maybe we should like go, okay, we're at a point where we can win some games in playoffs. Let's take an extra day to rest.
Consolidate, maybe. God, that's hard to do though without the benefit of hindsight, though.
It's good life advice, not just for gaming. Just take a moment to smell the roses. I think that's sometimes you need to sit on the wall and do nothing.
I almost feel it's almost something that's similar to even the Guard right now, right? Where they had like the fucking dream run, won the fucking stage 1, made it to fucking Iceland. Unfortunately, like and they were like boot camping for like 2 months nonstop in Texas to actually make it through, and then suddenly you get back into playing from home. There's there's a new patch coming out. The meta's changed, and it's like, oh fuck, well we don't have. I don't know if they were burnt out after that or not. I don't want to imply that as well, but there's been a lot of hours that's been put into that to actually make it to Iceland. That you're trying to repeat the same thing in stage 2. There's a lot of pressure going on where now you almost feel like you're leaving yourself aside. But I wanted to maybe even close the stage 2 run with you guys again. Bittersweet losing to Energy one more time on that second map on Icebox, and I wanted to know, was this a little bit into like the inexperience of the roster that you currently have? Because let's think about it. Let's face it. It's only been like what, 2 months that you guys have been together, maybe less, maybe a little bit more, and you get to a point where you're almost able to beat Energy on that second map to at least try to survive, right? Because think about it. Behind your mind, it was also very important to at least just win one playoff game to clinch LCQ because of everything that happened during the group. So did that get to you guys as well from like a mental state where it just shambled in the end when you fought against Energy on Icebox? Because you really only needed that one round to make it into that third map.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely gonna say, like, to start, disclaimer, I'm not my players, and I'm not like speaking for things they've said on it.
Sure.
And like as a coach, I don't have to feel the nerves in the same way. I don't think so. It's kind of just guessing from me. I do think we had some bad days, like, and it does happen, but yeah, I think it's a lot of pressure when we're not just playing for like Copenhagen. Both of these series, we were playing for our LCQ spot. We're playing for 2 more months of our 2022 career, and we're playing for 2 more months and being an LCQ and being relevant in August, right? When this is after the season, it's franchising, what orgs get in, like, job security is a question mark for everybody. Like, it's a lot on the line to be like, wow, if I lose this, I'm out in June, and I don't know what happens in the fall and with next year of Valorant. And if I win this game, I get to play in August and like keep showing improvement, and that's like right when franchising's happening. And so like no matter what happens, like if we do well in August, like it's good for all of us. It's kind of I think it's a lot of, I don't know, like I'm definitely, we lost fair and square, but like in terms of pressure, yeah, inexperience for sure. Like it was all of our first time kind of being at that level, and we were playing for 2 months of our year in both those games.
Of course.
I mean,
and all the Sentinels fans, Just kidding.
Yeah, true.
Obviously, this one we kind of touched on it earlier a little bit. That there's a 50K coming up. There's hopefully those third-party tournaments, but is there anything else on the horizon for Ghosts? Like, what's the next steps when you guys come back from vacation? Have you got anything lined up?
I think we're gonna take a you know, not sure how long here, couple of weeks, few weeks, something like that, and then just get right back to scrimming. Probably not 6-day weeks where I spend 12 hours a day at the PC. A little more chill than that, but we want to get scrimming these teams that are in LCQ and start that up, and then yeah, my hope is some of these teams, you know, some of these people are saying like, "Ah, bummer, Ghosts aren't in LCQ." I hope some certain teams don't
Disband?
do so hot in LCQ, and then we can show up in this Nerd Street 50K and just shit on everybody and maybe reinforce the rhetoric of like, ah, too bad Ghost wasn't in that.
So I have a little strat for you, right? You just go around to all the other teams, say like, I've been scouting out, and like pick out some players that are like pivotal to a roster. Recommend one to each team, and then they'll buy them. Team will disband. You're in. You're welcome. I'll take 20% of winnings for that.
20?
Genius plan.
Just 20. Okay,
20.
that's
20.
pretty-
I'm a generous guy.
How
I'm
fucking,
a nice
how fucking
guy.
magnanimous of you, Mitch. Yeah. All right. Look, Kaplan, man, great to have you back. And you know, I know it's it's definitely bittersweet because you're weighing obviously great achievements and great progress for the team with, you know, a little bit of uncertainty. I know I speak on all of our behalves where we say we definitely hope to see more of yourself and the team around and in the future. And hopefully you can enjoy the break a little bit, consolidate somewhat, and get ready for a renewed push later in the year, man. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you very much for having me. I will enjoy it. It's always going to be bittersweet. You know, anyone who's at the pro level just wants to win so bad that you always could have done more, always could have won more, and you got to learn to land on your feet. So we're working on it.
One of these days, the 3 p.m. beer is going to be on me, mate. All right, take care. Thanks for coming on.
All right. Thank you very much, guys. Have a good day.
See you, Adam.
All right, there it is. Obviously, Kaplan from Ghost Gaming, a team that we really hope to see much more of now as well. And yeah, I think everyone has a bit of uncertainty going into like a franchising era, and especially with like you know, trying to understand how everything that's not within the franchise model gets sort of fleshed out. But again, nice to see that there's still some tournaments later on this year, and there's something for the Ghost guys to set their eyes on, because obviously incredibly talented group of gamers. Fans, Mitch, great show. Yeah, we took a bit of a different approach today. I hope that lands okay with viewers, kind of, you know, moving through some of those topics at the front of the show and trying to go, you know, more in depth with some of our interviews.
Yeah.
Obviously,
I enjoyed it. Had fun.
Yeah, man.
I mean,
even though we shaved like a lot of stuff, right? Not talking about like the full games and stuff like that too of every stage or EMEA and NA. We still did 2 hours and a half. So
I mean, I know. We just don't need to. I mean, if you guys want to know how to games, just go fucking VLR. You know, or if you want our opinions on the games, you can usually get them.
Watch them yourself, you lazy cunts.
Yeah, exactly. No worries. We can all be VOD watchers now, okay? Good to be everybody. We're going to be back next week, Tuesday, 11 a.m. PT. We're looking for another deep dive interview, and obviously we're going to catch up on what's been going on with our playoffs in our VCT regions. See you guys later. Have a good week.
peace.